29 minutes. It won't be averaged with tonight, so tonight will be much longer. Hope everybody got the minutes, had a chance to look them over, and if so, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Allen, Commissioner Jernigan, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Bolden, resolution authorizing $20 million multifamily housing revenue bonds for the Health and Educational Facilities Board.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman.
How are you tonight?
I'm fine. This is another health and ed facilities bond issuance request. This one is for the acquisition and renovation of the Imperial Gardens Apartments in Smyrna. It's been in service since 1985, so it can probably do with some renovation by now. The proposal is not to displace anybody that's a present occupant. And the developer's going to spend about $30,000 a unit with new appliances, new floors, HVAC, plumbing, patios, washer, dryer, etc. And the tax exempt financing component of it is $20 million. As usual, this is a revenue bond. We're a conduit issuer. There's no liability to the county or the board.
Any discussion, questions, or motions?
Make a motion to approve the request.
Second. Second, Commissioner Baum. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Investment report. Mr. Beatty.
Good evening. What we did not have a bid this month. Our LGIP rate did go up 10%, which was 1 basis point, but was up a little bit. And like I said, didn't have a bid. But last time we were talking about taxes, which we were a little behind in December, and caught most of it back up in January, which is kind of typical how that flows.
Any questions of Mr. Beatty?
Motion to approve this report.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Beatty. Second, Commissioner Schaefer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Fund condition report.
Okay. Starting with development tax. In January, we collected $153,750. It brings our total after refunds to $1,962,750. Our estimate for the year is $2,450,000.
We're on track to do that.
We're on track. We should get that.
Can I ask,
Sir?
how much do we have committed from that fund for projects?
All of that is committed. All of the
All what?
estimate, the $2 million for it is all committed,
Okay.
if that's your question.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. At the end of January, our cash balances total $200,262,000. $188,150,000 of that is operating funds. $12,113,000 is borrowed funds. Debt service, just a reminder, it's not that we've got that much more in debt service, just reminding that in January of 2014, we had borrowed some of that for school projects and replaced it later. It was about $7.5 million. On our revenue, all the funds, are pretty much collected, at least better than what they did in the prior 5 years reporting. Our sales tax for all governments for 6 months reporting is 9.47% higher than the first 6 months of the last prior year. After 4 months of reporting, the current levy is 0.6% higher than last year. Our development tax that we've already talked about is 81% collected. In the general fund, some interest on that one, building permits are 80% collected, with the year only being 58% through the year, and we are 80% collected on our budget.
Okay, the circuit court, it's got the sad face,
Well,
and that's dealing
But
with.
it's still, they're closing out, so it will
They're-
eventually get
They're
it.
catching up, is what I'm
Yes,
getting
they're
at.
catching up.
Okay.
And that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any further questions of Ms. Nolan? Or motions? Thanks, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Kaplan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Risk management. Ms. Street.
Okay, we'll start with Fund 264. For the month of January, our per employee per month and our self-funded claims averaged $887 when you compare to the prior year of $862. When we combine our on-site medical experience, our total per employee per month increases to $837 compared to prior year of $930. Our current year-to-date average is $921 compared to $896 prior year. For Fund 266, at the end of January, we're at $397,271 compared to prior year of $278,050. And we currently have 13 open worker comp claims.
Any further questions for Ms. Street?
Motion to approve the report.
Thank you, Mr. P. Second. Second, Mr. Jernigan. We just voice vote this, I guess it's no matter. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you've got a budget amendment.
Yes. I have a budget amendment here to increase account number description 399. That is moving money out of our payroll into this contracted services. We currently have an open position of our safety and training coordinator. And to conclude out the remainder of the fiscal year, I'd like to outsource the safety inspections through CCMSI. That would give us an opportunity to bid the services to see if we can do it cheaper and still at the same productivity level in terms of conducting the safety inspections. And it would give us an opportunity to do that evaluation by moving this money through the remainder of the fiscal year.
What is the I'm not familiar with the company you're talking about.
So
Tell me about that.
CCMSI is the current company that has our property and casualty insurance. They also work with us on our OJI. So outsourcing this to them would enable us to then utilize the claims data that we have to do specific loss control measures in terms of our safety inspections.
But they'll be going into our schools just like this other person
That's
has been doing,
correct.
do the same thing, okay, this door was chained or locked or shouldn't have been.
Right, or this,
You know, whatever
it's
it is.
above a 4 foot and there's no chain, those type of things we would be looking for. So they would do the OSHA regulations.
And you're saying from now till July or first of July.
Correct.
So this is just a test. It's an open spot now, correct?
Yes.
And then, so we'll just see how this works, and if it doesn't work, then we'll go out and hire that person back at that point in time. Looks like it's a good time to try this.
Right, that's correct.
So y'all looked at that in insurance committee?
No, we didn't. we'll have to make a decision on which direction we're gonna go during this budgeting process.
If you do wind up outsourcing it though, would it be the money that was in the budget this year would be the basis for next year? Would that include benefits or not?
But this contracted services won't be any benefits
I
with
know
it.
that, but are
So
you
we
gonna
don't-
add the money to
We
that?
don't know
Oh, see what it
until we
does.
see what it actually costs us and what we get for what we're contracting.
And who will report to the committees on this? You'll do it here,
Yes.
and Dan would to public safety?
That's correct.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Allen.
What is the salary for that position? Is that what I'm looking at on line 189, other salary and wages? Is that,
There's other people in there.
Into briefly, I believe it was 39,000, if I remember correctly. The former employee did not participate in our benefits, medical and such, so to replace that position, we know that our cost for that position would go up because they would most likely participate in some of the benefits that this employee did not.
Mr. Jernigan.
If you outsource it, say the department right now, the person is hard. If somebody working now thinks there's a problem in the department, they can get in touch to where they can come check these out. Will that be added cost
So
if they have to do that?
So if we have right now the need for an on-site inspection, we can backfill those ad hoc requests with Dan Good. He is qualified to do safety inspections as well. So if we are requested to come out and look at a particular building, we can accommodate that on
I mean, it can be a piece of equipment or something too. I've seen it happen. That's really not wanted because you could get them just pretty quick, yeah.
yeah, and that would still be
Would
available
that be
as
added
needed.
cost?
Well, we would probably do that in-house because we would need to be nimble on those requests. These are scheduled throughout the school, based on a school year calendar, and we generally do county buildings through the summertime. So in order to accommodate a request like that, we would want to do that in-house so that we could get that done as quickly as possible.
Any further questions? Call roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much. Ms. Crowell, we got a county clerk budget amendment, I believe. Roll back up.
Well, I would like to introduce Stoney Hale.
Ha.
He is with BIS, and he is our representative for our computer software program that we use with the state of Tennessee. So I thought it would be a good idea, because this is all going to be new to you all, that if you had any questions, if I couldn't answer them, he can. So what we're asking for is to be able to do what 86 other counties are already doing as far as scanning, and 78 other counties are already doing print on demand. I have put this off as long as I can put it off. Here we are. Print on demand is this. It's a new way of registering your vehicle. It will eliminate all stickers that we have in our office. This stock will be provided by the state of Tennessee. We will no longer be buying the paper for it. The stock will come with the reflective right here on it. And this will come blank. And when we print it, you'll notice the new decal number that it prints with the year will be the same as their tag number. The wheel tax, you know, when you pay that, it also puts these two initials down here, stands for tax paid, in case an officer has a question or whatever. This is it.
The decal on demand part, it started in Sumner County in December of 2013 as a pilot program. And the goal of it was to get it out to where the pre-printed decals where they're worth $24 each. If somebody stole a pack of them, it comes back to the inventory of the county clerk. Where's this pack of decals that are $24 each? It's where this is the plain paper. Then the other aspect was for law enforcement, because most counties I go to, people stolen decals and whatnot, is where the plate's now tied to the decal, is to kind of, somebody could steal the plate still, but it's made to deter the theft of that. So I was just going to point that part out.
So in order for me to do this, I have to scan. I have went and visited with Sumner County, Montgomery County, Davidson County, and Hamilton County. They're already doing the scanning end of it. What I find will be most efficient for our county would be that each person have their own scanner, and they will scan that paperwork as soon as while they're doing the transaction, actually, versus one scanner in the back, which would involve me hiring a new employee, stacks of paper. It could take a day or a day and a half to do nothing but scan. I know this is a big cost up front, but in the long run, I feel that it's the most cost efficient. It may not seem like it today, but in 3 years from now, you'll be saying, we're still paying someone benefits to sit here and scan paperwork. And again, 86 counties are already scanning and we're not. And there's some benefits to scanning as well for the county. And Stoney, if you want to go in on that.
Yeah, I can go into it. Basically, the state was pushing more to be able to scan. We started scanning with Coffee County in 2006. Basically, the county clerk just wanted to have a way to electronically keep all of her documents in her server, on her backup, and then in a bunker backup we do. So if anything's lost or burnt or whatever, she always has a copy of it. Well, then in 2011, Hamilton County wanted to get away from mailing paper to Nashville. So we built electronic filing where the file would be sent to the state. And the state was hiring temporary help that was scanning the work, and they kind of had problems. Sometimes it'd be great, sometimes it wouldn't, as far as the images that were being scanned, either being lost or whatever. So this way, when Lisa does the transaction at the end, she always has an electronic copy of it. It's backed up to her server. We back it up to BIS in Piney Flats, Tennessee, where we're from, every 30 minutes, and we back it up to a bunker in Duffield, Virginia. So there's always a copy of that, because currently Lisa's keeping physical copies of it. She's mailing copies to the state, and then the state's having somebody go through and scan. So if something happens through, I've seen all the hands it touches at the state, if you did a title and Lisa couldn't issue it and it was issued at the state, for some reason if it was misplaced, Lisa's able to pull it back up in her system and help that customer. As where the other way, the paperwork's, nobody really knows where those old titles or the bill of sale was when it went to the state. So,
Are you still required to archive these and the paperwork on these?
Well, we were discussing that on our way in.
Well, sorry.
You want to go?
Well, what the state's having them do, because the state has a overall state electronic filing system that this sends to. So once she scans, the way that she'd do it is keep it about 3 weeks. She would spot check it in what they call image retrieval, which is the state's imaging system. Once it's there, make sure that you have it there. You've spot checked it, and then when at that point you shred the documents, you get rid of the documents. You don't mail them to the state. You get rid of the documents once you make sure they're there. For Lisa's backup every day when she does this, we have what's called a scanned image report. We know every motor vehicle transaction that happened, and we know that it should have a document with it. So if the document's missing, it IDs it then, so she makes sure there's an image. As long as she has it, it's on the server's backup, BIS, and our bunker backup.
So what's the longest that any county in the state has had this system working?
Scanning, 06, Coffee County Clerk.
Okay, now
Then
what is their cost now versus what it was in 06?
Just replacement of scanners. Scanner rollers are fairly inexpensive. About every 100,000 pages, you got to replace the little rollers that roll the pages. That's why we go with the Fujitsu scanners. because you can replace those parts that just wear out.
So what was their original cost and what's their cost now?
Originally, they bought the software. The software itself was $15,000, and I can't remember what the actual scanner prices were, but they were expensive scanners then, possibly more expensive because some of the hardware cost has went down over time. As far as now, just replacing the scanner if one goes bad. She does it
Still,
for like
you still hadn't
$1,200.
answered my question.
What
Well, I
did it
don't know
cost
off
in
the top of my
06?
head as far as
What
what.
it cost in 06 for Coffee
For
County?
any of these, you know,
Oh,
you're
it
cost
saying
somewhere
that
in
Scanner right now.
2013.
you say that you're gonna have a potential saving for us. It's gonna cost us a lot of money on the front end for hardware and the software package. Well, I wanna know what the potential savings are.
Well, her savings was saying if she doesn't put a scanner in every window, she'll have to stack all these up, and every night or every other day, she'll have to hire somebody to do them, you know. So that was the only
Every
savings
day.
she was indicating, so there's not gonna be any real savings in what she's currently doing.
Well, and there will be a little bit of savings in such as paper.
Yeah,
The
what-
state's
what
gonna
do
be
you got
providing
there?
providing the cost of the stock with the reflectorization on it versus us running 3 copies per transaction, okay? And that's in paper. The ink for these print on demand is $20, well, $21 with shipping. And it will last, would you say 1,300?
Yeah, 1,383.
Mhm. For every,
It's a
it will
thermal
last
ribbon.
for 1,300 registrations. Currently, the printers that we're using, the Hewlett Packards that we print, I call them a 201. It's the registration when you come in and do a correction, apply for a new title, that type of thing. That ink for those Hewlett Packards are quite expensive. And when I say quite expensive, I'm thinking right off the top of my head about $50 for ink versus $20. So gradually it'll build up. You know, I mean, it is a big cost up front, but I found this to be the most efficient way to get a scanner at every clerk versus one in the back and hiring someone to do nothing but scan imaging.
You're saying these cards are $24 a piece or per stack?
I was talking about the stickers.
That's
They're
what I'm
each-
talking about.
You know, the sticker you get with your license plate,
Right.
it's worth $24, not counting your county wheel tax.
That's what we're paying now, or is that what?
That's
The
just,
state.
Selling part.
I'm just saying that's what those, if somebody stole
state
those, what
supplies.
you're responsible to the state for. It's kinda like, Davidson County had an issue once with license plates that was missing. They had to pay for those plates there,
Do we have a
whatever the
number
problem.
on what, I had picked up on that, you had said it can reduce the amount that are lost or stolen. Do you have an estimate of maybe what was lost or unaccounted for?
In our county,
Yeah,
actually, we do an excellent job.
okay.
We really do. I don't know of any that's been stolen.
Oh, really?
There was an audit finding, there was some stolen.
No,
No,
no.
that
It's
was
different.
not.
It was the month.
That was the month, okay.
That was a month.
Why don't you steal the month and not the
But still, a pretty inexpensive solution would be to get them locked up in a cabinet.
And they are.
Now, yeah.
Well,
This sounds like a good program to me, but I'm wondering why we're sitting here February 5th, we're just fixing to start the budget cycle, and we're not doing this through the budget cycle, and we're going into undesignated fund balance, when we could probably keep doing this for 3 or 4 more months and get through the budget process and include this in the budget.
I understand that. I just feel, first of all, we're way behind with the state. I mean, normally, we're the 5th largest county in the state of Tennessee, and Rutherford County is normally on the front end, on the cutting edge, and now we're 86 counties one way, 78 the other.
4 or 5 more months isn't gonna,
Well,
we've been doing it the way we've been doing it for some time, I would think.
understand. And the state
And we look at
also-
this stuff more in depth when it comes through the budget process, and we try and discourage department heads from going into unassigned fund balance any more than they absolutely have to. So that's my only concern with this really is, I think the timing's bad.
Well, I think probably some of the commissioners are thinking that it sounds like a really nice system and we see the advantages of it. We had anticipated spending $10,000 this fiscal year on data processing equipment, and now we're going to be spending over $50,000. So we're spending more than we thought. Maybe that's one concern. And then the other concern is it's coming out of would be coming out of unassigned fund balance. And maybe part of the problem is your timing is bad. We know we have several items on the agenda, and some of them are pretty expensive, all wanting to come out of unassigned fund balance. And we really try and discourage that. For example, we're probably ready to ask you, is there any place in your own budget where you can find this money so that it doesn't have to come out of unassigned fund balance? But again, we've got several of these requests tonight, and we've tried to limit taking money out of that fund as much as possible.
Well, the reason I did decide now, instead of waiting, is I know that the state ships their stock December the 1st, March the 1st, and December the 1st. And that's the reason I chose now versus waiting until my budget came across. But I completely understand. And when the state is continuing to question me, I literally have a legitimate reason of why I can't do it. So I'm here asking, and that's all I can do.
Well, I've got another concern too, and it's, I've got a bad taste in my mouth about some computer software that's cost us almost $1 million that was guaranteed to be working fine, and it's been used all over the country, and it's not being used now. And, you tell me you've got this in 4 counties. I don't have a lot of faith that it's gonna work.
4 counties?
Well, how many counties do you say? 80, well, you
It's
mentioned
78 and 86.
4. Okay.
We do 93 of the 95 county clerks motor vehicle software. We've done Rutherford County software since mid-90s. So we've had a long-term working relationship with y'all with this. Basically, the state's really leaning on Lisa for the
Well, you're
scanning.
not doing this at all.
I'm talking about the county clerk, your motor vehicle software, your general ledger, business tax, marriage license.
Right.
We do all this. This is a new piece that we developed working with the state, the print on demand. Print on demand's been a great feature, which cuts down on Lisa's, overall employee cost of managing over 200,000 decals.
Well, I see too, the
But
reason
it's
I
fine.
asked the archive question was because the state is, other things that we've been able to do with software and computers, they still require us to archive it with paper. So
Yeah.
that's why I was coming from that question, because that's still a cost that's gonna be fixed if they haven't lifted that.
See,
Well-
back in 2011, that was Hamilton County's main concern when they start scanning. When they worked with the state, said, well, when we send these electronic images to you, how long do we have to keep these? And the state's response was, well, when we scan it up here, we shred it after it's scanned. So that's how they told Hamilton County, once they see it's made to the state's imaging system, they can shred it.
So you don't have any storage?
No, not for those images, like for that paperwork, no, sir.
And right now, we're storing those for 5 years.
Like the print on demand, it come out, it was just the biggest thing to really speed up the lines, take care of stuff. The state's been the one leaning on the counties to scan. That's why so many counties are scanning, because the state wants out of the scanning business.
They offer us any money to pay for these
They
scanners?
did. They didn't do a good job on how they offered it to you, because they're paying you $250. Well, what they did is last year they decided they'll give you $250. They'll give you $150 more if you scan. Not a lot of money, but for Rutherford County, they also increased your titles. 35 cents every title you get goes to
Issue.
data processing. You get an extra 35 cents for every title. So if you look at Rutherford County, the number of titles you print, that's where the state made up to the larger counties. Because the smaller counties, $400 is a lot of money. You got a Van Buren, something like that. It'll offset a lot of that because you have one scanner. It's not a big deal. But when you have to get 25 scanners and all of a sudden you have to get all these printers, the 35 cents was the big kicker for the larger counties like Knox, Davidson. The 35 cents tallies up with the number of titles that you guys print. That's how the state come up with their formula.
About how many titles per month are we generating?
Averaging, we're printing about 400 titles a day.
400 titles a day, okay. So that's 20 work days at least, that's 800 titles a month. Is that right?
No, 400 a day.
400 a day,
Okay.
yeah.
400 a day.
12,000.
12,000 30-day month.
In a 30, yeah, but she didn't, yeah. Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
we're
10.
printing
So that's
a lot.
$3,500 a month. That's what
The
I-
print
what
on
I'm trying to get
demand
at.
would lessen the time. When I talked to Debbie with the state
Is that
today, it would lessen the time by about anywhere from 20 to 45 seconds per transaction
20 days, 400 a month.
to lessen the line. But I can't do one without the other.
Have we, Have we spoke to anybody in OIT? I mean, they
20 days.
Well,
talk about it?
Per day.
well, Brian knows that I was coming tonight, but this is a system that BIS has designed for the state of Tennessee and that all the counties are using. I mean, it's not something that's out there across. This is for the state of Tennessee, working with the software for the state of Tennessee Department of Revenue.
I mean, it's obviously a proven system, you know, and I see a lot of benefit to it.
Pilot
but-
County with Sumner County from December 23rd, 2013 until it's about April before they let the next 5 counties jump on.
Mhm.
Then when the next 5 counties jumped on, it went great. And then June of 2014, the state said, all right, everybody wants on board, jump on board. So,
You know, the process of time, the paper costs and all that, but I have to second Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Baum. I just think the precedent of tapping into our unassigned fund balance, it's just not good timing right now. What do you think?
I think I can speak for the committee for saying that we will support this when you do your budget. Mr. Mayor may want to interject something. This is bringing in $3,500 a month is what he's going to tell us, I believe.
$3,500 a month just on the titles at 35 cents. So over 12 months, we look at almost $40,000, so it'll pay for itself in a little over 12 months.
But it brings in
Unless we
$3,500
miss
without the
something here.
system, right?
No, we're not getting 35 cents till we
well,
start
that's why
scanning.
the state's
start-
leaning on
Yeah,
Lisa
we are
very hard
already
right
getting-
Oh, we
now,
are
saying-
getting 35 cents.
Yes, we are.
All right, so we can
Right.
bank that
But
money.
that's
if we
why
do
Lisa's
that.
We're already there.
That's why Lisa's getting her call from the state, leaning on her. You're supposed to be scanning. So,
Okay.
She can just tell them that greedy budget committee said, wait till budget time to do it.
like I said, having a leg to stand on is,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, right now I didn't.
at
I mean,
least,
I'm here
that's
doing
just
what I
my,
need to do.
anybody wants to make any motion, they can.
Well, I'll make a motion that we deny it until the budget cycle, but I would like to see the county clerk to talk to Hamilton, Sumner, and Montgomery, because they're all
I've already been there.
around. Okay, you know what the
Been there and
recommendation?
done that one,
well,
yes.
Why don't you send us a recommendation that they said?
I'd
Just
like-
so
Well,
we
got a-
because
we
we're
got a
gonna be-
motion, let's get a
Do
second.
you need
Second.
enough motion to deny it if you ain't gonna do it?
I don't know if we need anything, to tell you the truth.
Well, you need one to.
But he's made a motion, if anybody wants to second it, or we can, or I think she can just take what we've told her tonight, and she knows exactly what to do, and we'll take care of this come June,
All right.
if that's the consensus of the
Well,
committee.
to add on to that, when you talk to them, I want to know what their costs were before and after.
Okay, the thing, the 3 counties, which is Montgomery, Sumner, and Davidson County, they do it on the back end. They have extra room. You've all been to the county clerk's office, you know I don't have an extra room. They have extra room where they have tubs and bins where they take the day before's paperwork and they're storing it. They have 2 employees. Davidson County does. Sumner and Montgomery has 1. Sometimes Montgomery will have to pull a second employee to do nothing but stand back there and scan paperwork all day long. And as they do, they have to unbundle them, to scan them, to rebundle them, to keep them for 3 weeks, to have them. What is happening there is the paperwork is continuing to be handed off to this one, to be handed off to that one, versus my clerk takes in the piece of paperwork, she sets it in the scanner, it goes through, it goes in at the end of the day with her paperwork, and then it's set aside.
So they don't have any individual scanners like what you're asking for?
No, they have it in the back.
And none of the other 80-something or
Coffee
whatever
County
their
does,
numbers.
Knox County does.
Huh?
It's kind of spread, like some counties are
And
fine.
what's the cost estimate
Yeah.
from those?
Yeah.
Well-
They're doing it the way you want to do it.
Okay,
Yeah.
but then I go to Hamilton County that is working like clockwork. I didn't see the chaos. It was professional. They're a larger county than we are, but not by much.
No, they're very close.
But yes. And they have a system. It's a huge difference in what you see professionally, and how it's getting done. And
So let me get this straight. Hamilton and Montgomery have the same system, but it's a mess in Montgomery, which is smaller than us, and it's working like clockwork in
Hamilton.
Hamilton Knox. But what she's saying is Montgomery County's got the single scanner. They're just paying
Oh,
somebody to sit
just
and
the
feed
one.
paper.
Okay.
As where Knox County and Hamilton County, they bit
have
the
it for
bullet, bought the
everybody.
scanners instead of the ongoing employee cost. They do it at the end of the transaction.
We do not have the square footage for that.
Ms. Crowell, I feel sure we'll delve into this completely as we go through your budget, and I don't mean to
You're fine.
rush you on. We've got 29 items on our agenda tonight, so
Well, I
we,
wish you all well.
we may just
Thank
move
you.
right along
Thank you.
and hope you understand our reasoning here, and we'll more than likely be able to take care of you through the budget process.
All right, thank you.
Thank y'all.
General fund budget transfer for the archives. Ms. Nolan, are you taking that one?
Yes, sir. We've had this before where they've had one of their students leave to take a job, and so he's left with work that needs to be done. And so typically what we've done is take that money out of the other charges, which was to pay tuition, and move it into part-time to finish him out for the rest of the fiscal year. This is all within his budget.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Kaplan.
Shut.
Second, Commissioner Jernigan. Any further questions, discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Motion passes. Budget transfer for Pauls. Mr. Gregory, how are you tonight? Fine, thank you.
We're asking to move money within our budget over into other supplies and materials to be able to purchase a cage to use as an evidence locker.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner
Second.
Schaefer. Second, Commissioner Baum. Any further discussion? I didn't know we had evidence lockers at the animal shelter, but
Unfortunately,
You
we
get
have-
bit.
unfortunately we do.
You get bit.
Maybe a rabies.
Well, this is for evidence that we bring in during cruelty cases, such as the sheriff's department, where we're having to hold it for court cases. It's just the most cost-efficient way that we could find to do it was to purchase like a storage cage to put into our storage room with lock and key.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Thank
Thank
you
you
all.
very much. Ambulance fund budget transfer. Mr. Nunley, welcome.
Thank you.
Got two of them.
Look at yours. I only ended up with one of them on the way up here, so. On the first, both of these actually relate to the renovation of the PACE Center, which the hospital leased to us for 50 years. And we're remodeling it for use as an office building. We need to transfer a total of $50,000 to that line item, which is designated transfers to other funds. And we propose to take that from our budget, other contracted services, $25,000, gasoline, $15,000, and utilities, $10,000.
There's also another one right behind.
You want to take them both as one?
Yeah. So I think they relate
So
to
this
each other.
also on the
I
same
actually
building?
made it with the other one. This one has not been to public sector, but I did call Commissioner Schaefer, and he told me that would be okay to bring it. The security cameras and locks weren't included in the original bid, and we're requesting to transfer funds from our building maintenance line item to cover the cost of installing the security system and cameras. The amount is $8,500, would be transferred from maintenance and repair service and go into that same account, transfers to other funds.
Mike, what kind of locks are we talking about? I mean, I assume you
The
have
key.
locks come on
The key.
no, you just forgot it?
Well,
Well, the security system and cameras, those cameras would probably be the biggest part of this. I don't know.
Yeah, the cameras are the biggest part of it. The locks are card key locks too. And we didn't just forget it. we thought about it to begin with and said, well, we think we can handle that, and then we forgot it, to be honest with you. So it was one of those things that
Just
slipped-
seemed odd
slipped
that
through
it
the
be
crack.
overlooked, so.
And I'll be back to you probably next month. Another thing that we overlooked was running conduit from the old station over to the new station so that all of the telephones and servers and all that stuff will be connected with that station and ultimately be connected with the new ambulance station that will be constructed over there in the near future.
Wasn't that brought up at some point? Talk about that conduit? In the original? There was a discussion about that.
The conduit between the existing
When we originally
administration.
approved the renovation.
We did talk about it, you're correct, that we did talk about that, but then it just didn't get put in the budget.
It didn't get put in the
bid
construction bid
But
documents.
that's not part of tonight's business anyway.
No,
That's just-
I'll be back next month about that.
I made a motion, please.
I'll
Attorney
second
made a
it.
motion to approve and Commissioner P, I believe. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Conner. Approval of Homeland Security Grant with TEMA for the emergency management. TK, you doing all right tonight?
All right, sir. This is a kind of good one. This happens about this time every year. Of course, next year may be a little different if you've been watching what's going on at the federal level. We're part of Homeland Security District 5, for those of you that don't know that. We're one of 7 counties. That includes Williamson, of course, Davidson, Sumner, Wilson, Trousdale, Cannon. We get funding, of course, through the Homeland Security, and we decide how to spend it. And the way that's accomplished is we have subcommittees. Some of those subcommittees are EMS, law enforcement, communications, things of that nature, response. And those subcommittees, Rutherford County has reps on each one of these committees. They decide on a priority list of what meets the requirements for spending the Homeland Security money and what projects they would like to pursue. They prioritize their list. That goes up to the District 5 Homeland Security Committee, which I'm on, and a voting member, and the 7 of us vote on the priority. Basically, we draw a red line of what we're going to try to get funded and what we're not. And that red line is based on how much the state gives that particular district to spend. Well, this past year, 2014, Rutherford County, on 4 different projects, has $68,168, and I'm here to ask that we accept that. There's no matching funds or anything of that nature.
And this is the 2014.
2014,
actually,
it kind of works kind of in arrears. Right now, we're in the middle of the process for 2015, and because of the difference in fiscal years, it always kind of runs behind.
And this money is stipulated for planning, equipment purchases, and you'll have to bring us some budget amendments back at a later date as far as where this money goes, correct?
Yeah, and or those departments that are going to spend it. Like one of the pieces of this is $10,000 to sort for urban search and rescue equipment. So they'll come back with that.
So
And
you'll come back later with an amendment to put this into the budget.
Yes.
Yes.
And this is the same grant we were expecting. There's no surprises on the amount of money or anything.
No, now the amount of money on this one, unlike the EMPG grant, which was last month, it usually sticks at about $65,000 to $69,000 a year. This one varies depending on the project. A couple of years ago, the Bearcat that the sheriff's office has was purchased with these funds, and that was quite a bit more money. But and that's also a district asset. He shares it with everybody in the district. So this is not always going to be the same amount of money. And what I was alluding to before is there's some discussion at the federal levels about the Department of Homeland Security's budget and funding it. A little fight between Congress and the president. So there's a good possibility this type of thing will be delayed next year, or not at all.
Make a motion for
A motion, Commissioner Jernigan.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Baum. Any further questions or discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you very much. Sheriff's Department. How are you tonight, Sheriff?
Doing good.
Mr. Russell?
Any day we catch bad guys is a good day.
And Shiny Buddy yet they had.
Day ain't over.
They are. All right.
Okay. So for
Got
tonight,
9.
we've got a whole bunch of stuff to cover. All right, number one, we need to move we need to move $500 out of our other equipment line item on the sheriff's office side to add to our rentals line item because there was some cleanup we had to do on utilities, so we needed to do that. So that's the first one. The second one is we want to pull $350,000 out of undesignated and put into the food line item for the inmates on the jail side budget. The third one is an insurance recovery from a damaged total vehicle, and so we want to take that money that came off that check and put it into our sheriff's office side new vehicles line item number 718. We also have a sale or recycled of materials. There's a whole bunch of stuff that comes into that fund itself. We want to put those monies back in the different line items they go to. So it's going to be on the jail side, the other supplies line item, and then some of it goes into the law enforcement equipment line item on the sheriff's office side. And that'll total, that's the $6,008. It's broken up into $663 and $53.45. Number 5 on the first page, $3,184 is just another revenue line item, and we need to put that into the other supplies line on the jail side. Next page, number 6, has donations that we've gotten in from several different things that we do. Need to put those into the appropriate line items they go for our charities of Operation Integrity, Scan, and Shop of the Sheriff, which was very successful this year. We had donations of $1,825 for our canines, and so we're wanting to put that into the sheriff's office side for the canine program. Number 8 is the sale of materials. We're recognizing that revenue, and we're going to put those back into the SCAN program, our office supplies program, and the vegetable garden for this upcoming season. And then the last one, which is number 9, is $28,475. That's revenue that's come in for some training that we're going to be hosting at the sheriff's office, and we're just wanting to put that into the in-service training line item so we can use it to host the class. And that's all I have for general fund.
Ms. Nolan, did you have a question on one of these?
I do. On line item, or number 8,
Okay.
we have not hit the revenue estimate for the year, so I would not recommend number 8 because what you're doing, you're increasing that estimate, and we have not received what we have anticipated at this point.
On number 8,
On number 8,
on selling materials into SCAN
yes.
and all that?
Yeah, because our revenue estimate for this line item is $10,000, and we've only received $5,900.
Did we not do a rollover on that earlier in the year?
Yeah.
Our revenue estimate is 10. We've only received $5,900.
Yeah, but did we budget 10?
We budgeted 10, yeah.
The budget is 10.
On the revenue side, I understand about we projected maybe getting $10,000, but did we actually expend in our line items $10,000 in the budget season?
Your budget has $10,000 as an expenditure.
Can they do what they want to do without doing anything here because it's already budgeted?
No, what they would need to be doing is there's no sense in increasing a revenue item when you have not hit the revenue estimate. You know, typically what we do at the end of the year is we adjust revenues to what we
Well,
get.
if there was an issue, couldn't you have called earlier today?
If I wasn't in meetings all day today. So what
I
you
was
were
in meetings too, and then got.
Well,
pulled
I
up.
mean, what you'd be saying is that you need to take it out of unassigned fund balance because that revenue is not. You wouldn't
We're just
increase
doing
the
our
revenue.
normal cleanup.
I know.
So if that's the case, pull it.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
appreciate a phone
We'll go
call
back
before
and
we
look
come
at
up
it for next
and
month.
sit up
then,
here in
if
front
that's
of
the issue.
everybody.
That's fine.
Sorry.
But yeah, because I don't ever put this on our revenue estimate worksheet at the beginning of the budget year.
But
We put a few dollars into the budget to estimate that we might have, so we can go ahead and get started with those charities.
But understand
And if we
that
haven't hit
you're not
those
the,
numbers,
you're not
that I
the only
understand.
one that make up sale of materials and supplies.
Right,
Yeah.
yeah, I understand that.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Well,
I don't
we'll
have a
pull it,
problem.
re-review it, but this was a cleanup that was seen as, these are funds that have come in to date. and we were gonna put those back in the line items that they come from.
So we're gonna let y'all work that out between now and
That's
next
fine.
month.
Yeah,
we can do that. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
I'll have to go back.
So back to items 1 through 9, list number 8. Any questions or motions on that?
I guess I was gonna ask a question about number 2, about the food. I know we gotta feed the inmates, but it seems like our food line item is pretty far from being where we thought it would be at this point. I just wondered if there was anything in particular that kind of explains why we're off so much on food.
Again, we told y'all back at budget that it wasn't enough, that we knew it wasn't gonna be enough. We told, come back and ask. I didn't bring Sergeant Lloyd, she's recovering from an illness. I made her come to the last one to explain, if you heard public safety, about some of the kosher meals, some of the other meals that we have, that you can't budget for. You just have to deal with it when they come.
Will this
And-
finish the year out, you think, or are you gonna be
Yes,
back
this-
again?
From
Yeah.
everything
This
we're.
should finish the year
It
out.
should
Yeah,
finish it.
we projected kind of where we've been spending on a monthly basis. We don't anticipate our inmate population going up, so based on current projections, we should be fine for the rest of the year. I don't anticipate coming back. I only wanted to come here one time.
For the, for this line item, I just come to do it once.
Just a brief observation that if actual to date is $775,000, and that's 6 months worth of data, maybe it's 6 or less, or 7 months, excuse me. It's $107,000 a month. Okay, so $107,000 a month would be $1.2 million or $3 million. Okay, so that should be close. If the 775, it's all actually been spent.
Well, personally, I appreciate them bringing it all in one lick instead of coming up $50,000 a month and keep getting a little bit
Thank you.
along, so.
Thank you.
At least we're.
Well, they did, if you remember last budget cycle, they asked for more than what they wound up getting because we cut it down, what was it, 80,000? Something more.
It was $1.08 million last year.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, well, we cut it down to
we
like
cut it to
960.
930
Yeah.
this time,
Something,
yeah.
yeah, something like that. So, and they said that wasn't gonna be enough for them.
And food costs have gone up. I mean, when you go to Kroger, everything seems to have jumped through the roof, even though
Yeah, but inflation.
fuel's down, you think it helped, but it hasn't offset it yet.
Well, and plus you get, people come in, as Sarge said last time, you can't budget for people just coming in and go, hey, I forget exactly.
Gluten-free.
Yeah, gluten-free or just some different religion. And the only thing they have to do is say that they're that religion, and we have to provide the meals for them. And then if they tell 5 other people in the jail, the U.S. Supreme Court has said we have to honor those religions. And then boom, they say, your food costs have gone up tremendously. Kosher, I didn't understand the whole kosher diet. And it took us forever to find the kosher meat. And it's like 4 times the amount of just regular meat. Don't ask me why. But, we have to spend the money on it.
You gonna take this by itself?
Number 8 been pulled. We got 1 through 9 without number 8. We're ready for a motion on.
Make a motion.
Let's see if we get a second and Commissioner Pete's got something to say. Anybody want a second the motion to approve 1 through 9 without number 8?
I'll second it.
Okay. All right, Mr. P, you had something?
Well, I see some revenue that are here, and I don't, it's $350,000, yes. We're probably gonna need to put that much in. But I see quite a bit of revenue coming in here, some that's contributions for specific areas, but I'd like to see some of these contributions, like at $28,475, put that in against the food bill that we're looking at. And you've got that several line items there that you could pull. It may be a couple $100 here and there, but that'll help pay for one of those kosher meals.
They didn't bring it up to y'all in the meeting, y'all's meeting.
What about the
Yeah.
3? Yeah, but if you look down at these 9, if you look down at these 9 items, there's a lot of them that aren't 54210, and you can't just up and switch between the jail and the sheriff's department, can you? I don't think so.
You can, you move,
He can move money from his sheriff's department to the jail and
he does that quite
Okay.
often.
Okay.
We've got a motion to approve everything but number 8. We can vote on that, and if it passes, we move on. If not, we'll beat this some more unless somebody, Commissioner Baum, you got,
I was just gonna say Commissioner P could amend the motion.
Well, I'll do that. If I can get a second out of it, I'll amend the motion that these contributions that are the revenues that are listed here, 1 through 9, minus 8, are
The
be used.
28,000 is for classes, for a training class. And so therefore, you know, I don't know where we'll be on holding the class, and people have already paid to come to a class. If we don't put it on, they'll have to refund the money.
So it cost you approximately how much money to actually?
I don't know
do the
exactly,
training?
I'm just saying, I don't know, you know.
Well, I
We've
think
never
for-
had to do this before, so I don't know where we'll be, and if we have to refund the money, then we'll be back up here asking you to give us the money so we can refund the money.
I guess from our perspective, it looked like that was a contribution that was received and it was being placed in the in-service training account, but that didn't necessarily mean the in-service training account had no money in it.
No, but that's.
So you could pay for the
those
training,
are
we're just
fees that
not
come
putting the
in.
contribution in that line.
Depends on,
It says revenue from conference registration.
So I don't think Commissioner P was saying not to have the training, he was just saying the contribution wouldn't go towards the training since the in-service training line item already has money in it. It would,
what you end up doing though, if you do that is, we have several groups that, or each of our different divisions have training that they plan to go through each year. They have, some of them have to travel to them, some of them are able to do it in state. And they have to maintain their certifications, and each one of those department heads brings me their list every year for their in-service training. They actually take it to Captain Spence. And he gives me a total number that says, for everybody to do their certifications for this year, this is X. And that's what we budget for that line item. And then when he holds a class like this, he's trying to, you know, instead of having all the travel expenses to go out to Gatlinburg or to Alabama or wherever they gotta go, we're gonna do one here so that some of our guys can get it done cheaper. And we're also gonna be able to have other departments come to us and pay us, which is a little bit better. But we still take the cost to hold the class, we divide it up per person and divvy it out.
And we raise a little bit more money to send our guys to other classes.
Yeah, and so.
So this
you
isn't
know, it's
necessarily
not a lot,
a
it's not a lot
contribution,
of
this is more or less
surplus
a
flush money.
fee.
It's kind of a cost, yeah.
Yeah, so this,
We're just trying to cover our
this
bases.
line item may be kind of, you know,
I
not
wish we were in the
represented because they're actually
profit-making
paying
business.
for a class to come and get, and we've
Yeah.
got to provide the class.
Well, I recall sitting in public safety last year when this came up, and you were telling me what a moneymaker this was, and you planned on continue doing it, and you were making money.
Well, it helps us offset our
Yeah,
costs.
it all
when
helps
we
us
send
send
our
other people to other
guys out.
training. Now, if we're gonna use it for other things, then we might as well not do it.
Well, I'm not saying don't do your training, but I'm saying that
Yes, sir.
we need to budget this. I mean, I don't wanna go in there and undesignated balance when we don't have to.
Right.
We've got revenues here that we can pull out, and that's where I want them to come from. You know, it may be $400, that's
Yeah.
$400 more dollars, it doesn't have to come out of undesignated fund balance. So I'll leave my amendment where it is, and, you know, I'll let you bring it back next month or whenever, after you go through these and decide where you could pull it, but I say the revenues off this list would go against, paying for the food supplies.
Then you're telling everybody that's donated money,
Other than the ones that are contributed to specific causes. That's why I said you can come back next month after you look at them and say, hey, these were already entailed, and this guy said, hey, I donated this for X.
Was this discussed in public safety?
yes.
Yeah.
It was given a recommendation by all of them to pass on to budget
That's what's
finance.
got me mixed up. If you, both y'all on public safety.
I'm not.
He's not, no.
Oh, you're not on it
He used to
now,
be.
right? Okay.
It's like we're kind of muddying the water a good bit here.
Well, I mean,
You're gonna
I
be back for
thought
some
Robert
more
was still on
funds and
public
other
safety.
accounts the rest of this fiscal year, I feel sure.
Yeah.
And I would first like you to look hard at any of these monies you can put in that line, but personally, I'm gonna vote against this amendment and try and move this along because it's gotten pretty fuzzy on what's going, what's not, and everything else, you know.
And we always have money left over at the end of the year that we put back into undesignated. I think last year we put about either 4 or 450,000. We put back into undesignated.
After amendments.
After
Yeah,
amendment.
After, not from the original budget,
Right.
but after amended,
Yeah.
amending it.
There was $450,000 left over from our budget last year. So,
Well, we got a motion, we got an amendment on the floor. If there's no You got a second on the amendment. Charlie seconded both, did you not?
I didn't actually second the amendment. I seconded it.
Did anybody, okay, I apologize, we should have stopped for a second before we continue discussion. Is there a second on Commissioner P's amendment? Hearing none, amendment dies for lack of a second. Now we're back to the original motion, which was to approve this list less number 8, which is going to be brought back. If there's no further discussion on that, call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
No.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Resolution authorizing sale of surplus sheriff's department vehicles.
We've gone through the other committees. There may be a copy of it on y'all's iPads, I'm not sure. It is. I'm asking to pass a resolution through all the committees that we can sell our patrol cars to other counties, other agencies. We've been contacted by Hardeman County, and actually now, because they saw this on TV, Vanderbilt Police had asked. Our patrol cars, whenever we take them out of service, we strip them, and then we usually auction them. We get anywhere from $500 on the low end to $1,000 at the most. Sometimes we can haul them straight to the scrap yard, get $750 on a good day. We're asking to sell them, and we're thinking right around $2 grand. We leave the car as is. We just pull, if it's a sheriff's office, we just leave all the markers. We just pull Rutherford off of it and sell it to them. If it's a police department, then they can take all the rest of the stuff off. But we think we can make a little more money by doing that, and these agencies are interested in them. Pretty much when we pull them off the road, usually our ideal is about 150,000 miles. We've got a lot of cars right now hitting almost 200, and it's just not worth it when the car is, worth $1,000 and you're putting a brand new transmission in it. That costs you $1,500 to put a transmission in it. So putting a $500 saddle on a $50 horse just doesn't make sense for us. So we move those cars on out. If we can sell them to another agency, we'll make more money. So that's what this resolution is. Come to find out, county agencies can sell to other county agencies. We've gone to steering, it's gone to public safety, and now it's come to y'all to go on to the full commission.
Will there be any kind of bidding process?
No.
How are we going to set the price?
Get with Mike Bailey and kind of think, we're just setting the price really right now at $2,000 with all the equipment in it.
I actually watched Public Safety and saw this, and I talked to a wholesaler, automotive wholesaler. He said he wholesaled a 5-6-year-old Crown Victoria with 220,000 miles, was fair, and brought right at $3,000. That's with no equipment on it. Of course, these are police cars, and I don't think you can put them on gov deals because you don't want John Brown out there buying a car with all the equipment on it.
Actually, you can't.
You'd have to strip it before you can do that.
Yes, sir.
But I would like to see some way to get competitive bidding between, 2 or 3 or more sheriff's departments, if possible. Because they might give $3,500 instead of $2,000 or something like that. So,
And whenever we do it, we'll still have to come back to the full commission, because you all as commissioners, whenever we sell it, we'll have to send the paperwork to the full commission. Y'all have to sign off on it. Then their full commission has to sign off on it, and then we have to swap paperwork. So, and it's for the auditors. So, there'll be a complete paper trail and this and that. I just want to get y'all's okay so we can sell them. And then it'll help us, instead of parking them in the field out back for a year or 2 before we get enough up before we have an auction, we can go ahead and sell them. Because a lot of times when we have the auctions, they've been sitting for a couple of years and the tires are out of them. They don't run, half the time. So at least if we sell them as soon as we put them out of service, then we might still get something for them.
Mayor Burgess.
Lisa and I don't remember all the details, there's so much happens in this world, but there's something maybe in some of this documentation that indicates sort of an independent appraisal needs to be done. And whatever's out there, if it's not included here, we'll work with them to be sure that's done. We don't know for sure there is any requirement for that, but it seems like we have some
No,
recollection of that.
All right, if Rutherford County, let's just say, for instance, Rutherford County agrees with Van Buren. Van Buren agrees with Rutherford County on a price. We don't have to do anything. We just, the two counties agreed, boom, done.
If that's the way it is,
Paperwork's
that's
done,
fine.
it's
I
done.
didn't know there was
I
something.
think he's right on
County
that.
to county.
When it's a county to county or.
When the county to
government.
county, I've talked to CTASC about this quite a bit,
Okay.
just to
If
make
it-
sure
if
that it
it's
was okay
agreed
to
upon
do it.
price. But do you have to bring the agreed upon price back, or is this,
I have to
this
bring
the agreed upon price?
Well, no, I have to bring the agreed upon price back to the full commission. And the paperwork will have to be done in full commission. Everybody has to sign
By
off.
each government?
Before the car ever leaves.
Before the car leaves. I mean,
Well, it's gonna take a
everybody has
couple of
their-
months anyway.
Yeah, it's gonna take a while. You know, in some ways, this might end up being more of a headache for us. But we always get those monies back and to put into our line item. So there's a little bit of incentive for us to try to do this. You know, because we always put the money back into our vehicles to try to offset, you know, maybe sell 10 cars and maybe buy one car.
How many vehicles do you sell a year?
Well, sometimes we might not hold an auction. The big auction we had, it was over almost 3 or 4 years worth of cars sitting out back. There was like 40 cars sitting in the field.
We're buying roughly, how many cars this year? 50 cars.
30 to 50.
30 to 50, depends on, so,
I have over 300 vehicles on the road. And we try to pull them off. Our patrol car, we try to pull it off of patrol at 100,000 miles. That's our goal. Lately, we haven't, just because we've had to have those cars a little bit longer. We're trying to catch back up. Now, some of them in 130, some 150. We try to get rid of them at 150 because the cost, it starts, you know, eating us up in cost. Transmissions, rear ends, brakes, you know, you never know what's going to happen with them. But I mean, we put over 1 million miles a year on vehicles. So,
When you would bring that back to the commission and to authorize the sale, would we as a commission have a frame of reference of what the value of that vehicle was versus what we sold it for?
no, not really. I mean, I can tell you, we wrecked one the other day, and they gave us $1,200 for it. You know, so I mean, it depends on the mileage, really. But right now, the market has completely fallen out of the Crown Vic. They're not worth anything because they're not making them anymore, and everybody's going to the SUVs. So there's not a market in them.
The question I've got is what equipment is staying with them and what that equipment costs. The lights, for instance, those packages, can y'all not move those over to the new vehicle? Same thing with the cameras. Are you giving shotguns away with this?
Nope.
I mean, I want
No
to know what
guns.
equipment we're.
We're not giving away guns. Light bars we take off. Most of the time we pile them up in the shed out back. We don't reuse them. They're wore out. Everything on these cars is wore out. Radios we usually pile up on a stand, and then eventually they end up destroying them one way or another. We're going, as you can see, we're going to talk about these in a little while. We're upgrading. We're going to a new generation vehicle and equipment. A lot of these cars still have VCR tapes for their camera systems. We've gone completely digital.
Well, some of them are digital though. I mean, if you just wrecked one that was a new one.
Yeah, no, we
you're
pull
gonna-
those out. If
Well,
it's a good system,
That's what I
if
want to
it,
know.
yeah,
You
if
know,
it's
what
a
we're
good
giving away.
system,
Because
if it's
some of
a-
these cameras are very expensive, a lot more than what you're talking selling this car for.
Yeah, we're
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about surplus vehicles that are basically everything's outmoded and it's high
It's
mileage
wore
and
out.
the cars wore out and all the systems in them are outdated. And all
Well,
that.
for instance, what's it cost for us to put a new camera in a car right now?
I don't have Darlene.
Is Darlene here?
6,500 to 7,000.
You see why I'm asking about accessories?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, they're expensive.
It almost costs as much for some of the, well, especially with the new ones, the accessories almost cost as much as the vehicle by the time you get through with it.
That's
But-
why I want to know what we're
Yeah.
giving away with the vehicles.
But a lot of the light bars, I mean, this stuff is just wore out. We recycle what we can.
Sheriff, if it's something you can't use, I understand letting that go. But these newer cameras and newer equipment, you know.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I'm not into giving a 2,000 car away with $6,500 worth of digital camera in it.
No, if we could reuse it, we
Yeah, Mike
definitely
Bailey's
will.
way too tight for that. He's not gonna give anything away to you unless he has to.
Come let me give him some lessons.
Okay.
I personally don't have a problem doing this, and he's right, you know, we can make more money on some of these vehicles. On some of these vehicles where we can strip this off, you know, I wanna make sure that that's what we're doing, but I'll go ahead and give you a recommendation or make a motion that we do this with the stipulation that that equipment is verified that we can't use it.
Got a motion? Do I have a-
Second.
And a second. Commissioner Bond? Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Mr. Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Mr. Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Jordan?
Yes. We got a drug fund. Amendment, budget amendment.
And I've added one,
There's
to get
two.
the updated one of our system, okay.
We got two drug funds.
All right, so the first item we wanted to, we're gonna move 15,000 from restricted for public safety into the in-service training account for the drug fund for that group. And then the second one, we were gonna pull 70,000 from restricted for public safety, put that into law enforcement equipment in the drug fund. And that's it.
Any questions or discussion or motion from Mr. Jernigan? Mr. Jernigan?
Second.
Second to Mr. Schaefer?
And those are good items that you can use that money for.
Oh, yes, sir.
Just to let everybody know.
Oh, yes.
Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Yes. Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Lay back, good. Get you guys for the night, does it not?
Yeah, don't get started.
Thank you
All
for
right.
your time.
Thank you a lot.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Chief Farley, I see you up there somewhere. Is that it? Yeah, that's it. Safer grant for Department of Homeland Security for fire and rescue.
Yeah, I went for public safety, and I wanted to run this through budget. We're requesting to write a grant for 12 additional people to put on the north side of the county. Our call volume has got to where it's like 2,700 calls countywide for a year. Smyrna Fire Department itself runs about 1,200 calls, and Laverne's running about 1,300. So we're actually, as a county-wide, running more than the city of Smyrna and Laverne. A lot of times in the daytime, because of the volunteer system, you don't have anybody there that can man a truck or a rescue truck. We're on the south side, and Sort's on the south side, so you've got a 20-minute thermal response on that side of the county if you have a structure fire or somebody trapped in a vehicle. So I've discussed this with Mayor Burgess, and we want to try to write another grant, 2-year grant. So it's be 100% cost up, 100% covered, no match, and hire 12 more people to put them on the south side. That way we have a full-time
On the north
station.
side, a minute ago.
Yes, excuse me, north side. We have a full-time station on the south side and one on the north side.
This is a 2-year grant that goes away after 2
Two-year
years.
grant.
And then decision time comes.
And all I'm asking for is permission just to write the grant.
And as we go through the budget process for him, we've already got at least 3 scenarios that would project, staying where we are, adding X, and then if we get this added. So you're gonna have, all of us are gonna have to take a serious look at this to see, and we're gonna project this into the future for the next 5 years, just to see how it's going to affect our expenditures when these grants run out, et cetera. So we're not saying we're going to even recommend this if we get it, but we're going to at least give us an opportunity to see if we do get it, and then we can do our projections, and we can have some serious review of that to see if it's practical, and we can find a way to make it actually happen.
How many firefighters do we have total right now?
We have 14 paid firefighters, now counting me.
Okay, and then, well, I mean paid for by a grant.
We have 12.
It-
Well, actually,
12.
excuse me, we have 13 because
13.
my recruitment and retention coordinator is also on the grant.
Okay, so this would double the grant coverage.
We're in the first year of a 2-year grant for those 12.
Yes, sir. Well, it'd actually be a year in May.
Ms. Nolan pointed out to me, do you wanna,
Well, it's just, and I'm sure
page
he
42
knows.
of 49, says grantees under the hiring of firefighters category must agree to maintain operational staffing at the level that existed at the time of award and must also retain all safer funded positions throughout this grant. Now,
You can't supplant.
yeah, but also, we're in the middle of a 2-year grant now, and we told those 12 people, we'll probably fund you, but we may not.
Well, when they were hired, they were interviewed, we told
Yeah.
them, this is a 2-year grant, there's no guarantees.
But if you accept this grant, it locks you in to keeping those people.
Right.
Because those people are hired at this point in time, and that way that would take away that option on those first 12, which I'm probably gonna support keeping them on, but I like having that option, so that's, Ms. Nolan showed this to me, and that scares me, that part right there, because that takes that option away from us. Or at least would make us keep them on another year till this grant was over with. Then we'd have 24 decide about at one point in time. This only affects somebody that's in a grant position. It just finally says, fire the ones you've got and hire them, but we're kind of in an awkward position, one grant right on top of another. It's gonna catch us in a bit of a crack right there.
Well, what Mayor Burgess has requested me to do is I create actually a 5-year budget based on the people we got now, and then a 5-year budget based on if we had these other personnel on staff, what the cost would be out through that 5 years.
And where the money's gonna come from?
It's a safer grant.
Yeah. And I mean, it's not gonna be 5 years.
Well, no, he wanted to know what the cost was gonna be on
When these
the
grants run out, what's our exposure,
Total
and how much
cost.
we're gonna have to be responsible for it before we can continue to move forward with accepting these grants, unless we have some real intention or some real mechanism in place to actually fund the ongoing continuation. So this, I think she's probably right. It says, at the time of the award, we must maintain the operational staffing at the level that existed at that time.
Of the award.
Of the
Yeah,
award.
of
If
the
they give
award.
us this award, we have to maintain the
You
level of
couldn't let
staffing.
those 12
that-
go.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course, if this is awarded after that year,
Well,
Of course, this is just applying. We
And
could
to-
always make the hard decision
Okay,
if
we're gonna have
it's
to make the
awarded.
I think
decision.
the
Yeah,
whole
we
reason
might-
for the language is that you don't
Yeah. And
supplant what you've already got.
what you're trying to do, you're trying to use seed money to bring these firefighters on, that helps alleviate some of the costs of the county, so you can kind of ease in this without just
Yeah.
biting off 12 people.
That's a good.
yeah, they've done this so that we can't just keep rolling and keep supporting our first 12
Right.
with a continuation of a grant.
Right.
Okay, good catch.
Where does it say that? No.
Page 43 or 49.
I think it's,
Page 42.
but I think maybe
On
on the
the
document
iPad, it's
it's
43 or 49.
Okay,
You just vote to apply tonight.
Yeah.
that's all.
So,
I mean, there's a lot of, and the reason for this, me and Mary discussed this, and they've discussed it all over the county. We're talking about going from 300,000 people to 600,000 people. I'm trying to get ahead of that. I don't want to wait till we have, people run over each other and then decide we need to start doing something about public safety at that point.
I'll make a motion.
Commissioner Jernigan, motion to
I'll
approve.
second that motion, but having said that, I'm like the mayor, we're gonna have to look at this and see what we can afford and what we can't. Of course, we don't know that we'll get any, if we do get some, then we'll talk about it and see.
Well, even without this, we have to do exactly what I've described as far as making these projections. We've got apparatus that must be bought, so all of this fits together in just some serious, difficult discussions.
Yeah, and we've got 11 vehicles that are 25 years old, which according to NFPA, the National Fire Protection Association, said they need to be taken out at 20. They're 25 years old. Our newest trucks are 15 years old. The plumbing and the piping and the stuff's starting to rot. So I mean, we're just about, you talking about running on a skeleton budget and running with beta almost to the point, it's exaggeration, but with beta and twine, everything holding this stuff together. I mean, our fire service is pretty thin.
We're making great advances in duct tape every year.
Yes. It's not that good yet.
Ask Ben Case, he can run a program off duct tape.
And when you said you were gonna be on the north side, where is this station you're talking about?
Walville.
Which one? There at the
On Jefferson
landfill?
Pike, yeah. that would give us a guaranteed response on both sides of the county. We had a structure fire last spring in Central Valley Road, and Walt Hill was on the scene, and the truck for Barfield was the second truck on the scene.
So you're saying that Walter Hill's now come under the Rutherford?
They're just having that discussion as we speak.
I mean, Mayor, have you brought this to public safety? Is this
No.
something we've talked about?
We haven't talked about it. We
Talking
hadn't-
about Walter Hill coming over.
No, we hadn't brought that.
Well, I mean,
It's
when
still
we
in
start
there.
adding more departments to it, I mean, our cost is gonna go
That's
up,
right.
so.
Well, actually,
We understand that.
Actually, as I incorporate the money that they get into our budget, they're paying $25,000 in insurance. So half what we're giving is going to insurance. By taking that into my budget, I can actually take the $25,000 and put it back into operations. So actually, if you look at it, we can incorporate them in our budget without really any excess costs.
All of that still.
As far as-
Is one piece of many, many pieces that have to be put in the total budget review.
Well, I mean, I think, I mean, just as we're beginning to take over these other departments, we need to know about this before.
Well, I mean,
because
that will go through public safety and through here. But they're in the process of discussing that and voting on that. And when that happens, it will go back through public safety and here.
I mean, they can vote on it all they want to, but I think this body needs to be the one.
And it
And
will
I'm talking
be.
about the full commission.
Yeah, we understand.
It will
We agree.
go through the
Okay.
process.
Yeah, we've done that, and that's what we're going to do.
We've got a motion and a second, do we not? Any further discussion on the grant? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Question, if it's a non-money, no, but.
You almost got away.
No, this is just a Robert's Rules of Order, something. We do not need to take a roll call vote on a non,
We
money
probably have to,
amendment.
we probably have to call a roll on that one. That wasn't on spending money, but my mistake.
You feel better?
School system. Mr. Odom, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Zago, Mr. Blair, couple other school board members.
Thank you. Anybody else need a copy of
You got an
that?
extra one?
We got
You
price
got
back
everything
down
down
here.
there?
There you go.
Mr. Jernigan has another one there too.
We'll start with the budget amendments.
That's fine with me.
Okay, Mr. Sanders is going to do the first two budget amendments.
We have one general purpose school, Fund 141 amendment. Our adult ed program has been awarded a critical needs grant of $69,550 for this current year. It includes increasing the hourly pay rate for our part-time adult ed teachers from $21 to $22. And our recommended motion is to approve the general purpose school budget amendment for the adult education critical needs grant of $69,550 as presented.
Put them together or one at a time?
I do each one of these.
Separate fund.
Separate funds.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Vote to approve, Ms.
Second.
Allen. Second, Commissioner Baum. Any further discussion?
Question. Okay, it's 69,550, whatever is given for an hourly increase, what's the rest going to be used for? Is that all it's going to be used for?
No, it is, it's additional money for teachers, so that's part of it. There is a little money that is equipment, $5,390, and a bit of it's $980 administrative.
So roughly 60,000 is going to be for an increase in pay?
Not really. We are increasing the pay as part of that. That rate has been the same 8 to 10 years.
Are you going to get more?
We are basically we are getting more money for the people that we do serve, more federal and state money.
Yeah, labor and workforce development furnishes your adult ed. They moved it out of education a few years ago. The only thing we have over there now is the adult high school that comes from the Department of Education. The rest of it is a totally different department. of labor and
Well, how much
workforce.
how much will it cost us next budget year?
This actually is a reduction for us because not all of this goes to that $1 an hour raise. Probably a fairly, I'd say less than a third of it will go to that this year. They're getting a slightly larger portion from state and federal funds.
Got all your answers, Commissioner Schaefer?
I guess. Okay.
Anybody else got any questions or discussion?
Call the vote. Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Educational Capital Project Fund Amendment, budget amendment.
This amendment takes $44,000 from Capital Projects Fund 177, account 34685, committed for capital projects, in order to purchase 1 acre of land from John and Judith Turner for $40,000. The Turners will donate 2 acres of land as part of this purchase. The remaining $4,000 will be used for closing costs, and this land will be used for practice fields for Eagleville High School. The lease for the existing practice field area is being canceled. And as we get into the building program requests, the initial sheets we were giving you showed a $64,000 cost for this project. I have reduced that number to $20,000 because this amendment will take care of $44,000. We tend to run out of money for closing costs. Often we'll wind up needing a little more. So I stuck $4,000 and hope it's a little high this time rather than having to amend money back in. But our recommended motion is to amend $44,000 from account 34685, Fund 177, committed for capital projects, in order to fund the purchase of 1 acre of land for the Eagleville practice fields as presented. The other $20,000 will be site work.
If the cost is $44,000 here tonight, then maybe it really doesn't matter what other spreadsheets have shown, but I did get one that has a date on it of today that said that Eagleville High School land FB field had a cost of $285,000. Maybe that was just a
That's
very,
like
very
early.
Yes.
It changed a lot, which I guess is good news, but
Thanks to one of your commissioners.
Thanks to Chairman Blair and Commissioner Pettis Reed. They put a lot of time and effort into this, and the Turners were gracious enough after a little arm twisting by Commissioner Reed. And one thing we stipulated during Health and Ed is this is not just permanent practice field, this is part of the campus. And it may be a practice field now or for the next 5 years, but at some point in time, it could be something else. This is not just given directly to the football team or the booster club. This could be used for parking lot, building, anything. This actually ties into the campus better than the property they were using before.
Right, and it's right by your EMS building also.
Yeah.
So it's,
So this is 3 acres of good land. It's not gonna be
it
half
is
a
good.
year with part of it a marsh or something like that.
No, this one, the water stood on the other, not this one.
We would probably want this 3 acres even if we didn't need it for a practice field, just for future use on the campus.
It's a good deal.
Was it gonna be named the Turner Practice Field?
Thank you, Commissioner Kaplan.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Any further discussion? Call roll.
So it is gonna be just a football practice field, is that what we're talking?
That's what it's gonna be used for at the present time, but
What
it's
is-
actually
What
part
is it being used for now, the area that's being leased?
That was
There it being
football
practice
practice.
field.
It was football practice.
This isn't what we're releasing, this is a different piece of property.
Yes.
But they'll use it for more than just football. won't
Oh,
they?
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna use it for
The,
softball
the,
and
the,
baseball.
pri-
or
the
whatever
price
or
of the
something.
other land that we were leasing was the 260 something thousand.
Yeah.
Okay, that's, in essence, that's what it
Well,
was.
the way this paperwork led me to believe that we were talking about the leased property, so, all right, thank you.
That was what it was.
There you go.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready to look at our capital.
Future building
project.
program.
The 5-year building plan, that several years ago, the commission asked us to look at 5 years when we do the plan. Of course, we're seeking funding for the first year of that 5-year plan. The 5 years is like $234 million. And I said to Budget and Finance, Health and Ed, excuse me, that we're pretty good out about 3 years. 4 and 5 really gets hard to project, simply because you don't know where a development's going to occur or a farm will sell, and which we're finding some going on at Stewart's Creek now that's certainly begins to change your mix, but pretty good at 3 years out. So what you'll see on the 5-year plan out towards really years 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, another elementary, another middle, another high, not designating where it will be at this time. So taking a look at it, we are trying to address 3 essential things that I'd like to point out to you. One, to anticipate district-wide and geographic area enrollment growth of our students, and that enrollment growth has been anywhere from 1.2% to 5.6% over the last 10 years. The couple of things in this plan that we're looking at now for high priorities for just the growth part, more students, is expansion at Oakland Middle. Also, we have a piece of property that we're looking at in the Smyrna area that will be large enough to house an elementary and a middle school. We're doing some geo testing on that now to see if that would be acceptable. We'd like to purchase this before it's developed. It kind of backs up to subdivision area. Right next to it we have electricity, water, sewer, gas. So we'd like to pursue that. The second thing in our 3 essentials is to continue addressing renovation needs in some of our overcrowded facilities. And absolutely, John Coleman, for those of you that's visited that and gone with us on that, we just need to do a significant replacement renovation need there. At this time last year, it was not on our 5-year plan, and as I explained to Health and Ed, basically, we did not know we had enough property there that we have access to allow us to build without tearing something else down. So where do you house close to 500 students in Rutherford County? You know, we haven't really closed anything in a long time. Our growth has not allowed us to do that. So with the additional property there, we don't have to purchase property to build the building. That opened up a different avenue. So that comes to the top, and we need to do for those students what we've done in some other areas. We had, of course, on the initial thing, which didn't come out of health and safety, was the Smyrna Laverne High Stadiums, which is a safety issue. As I explained to them, at the time, all of the visitor side has to come over to the home side for all of their restrooms and for their concessions. So you're mixing your crowds quite a bit for that. We have other things for the overcrowded. The 5-year plan is additions at Roy Waldron, Oakland Middle, Laverne Middle, Siegel High is out there for an option. The other thing that I think will catch your attention is our board. One of their priorities was to reduce dependence on portables, classrooms, and we have 143 instructional portables in 24 schools. This 5-year plan, if we don't grow too much at the time, can eliminate 47 portables at 6 schools. So I mean, it has the potential to do that. Portables are getting older. Some of them probably, we move some every year. It takes us in the neighborhood of, you budget what, $12,000-$15,000 typically to move them?
Up to 18.
And because of the handicap, you do the ramping and you know, all your electrical connections and intercoms and other safety, technology, all of that. So if we could get out of the portable business, it's a great way to spend money. Haven't purchased any in a number of years, but we still have 143.
I was about to ask how long since we purchased any, and I'm thinking it's
The
been,
year before Laverne Lake Elementary was approved is the last time we purchased
we
it.
put it in, what, 04, 05, something like that?
06,
07.
Because it was a year after Stewart's Creek.
Right.
We have a new fact book that's coming off the press, and so probably next week at the County Commission, we'd like to provide all of you with that fact book for 2015, which tells you when all these were built, so we'll get that information to you. I'd like to share with you quickly, not spend a lot of time doing that if we could. Look at first thing is some things we're looking at is just enrollment growth numbers. That's this particular sheet, which has some information. And I did this basically from the 2014 to actually pull numbers on January 22nd, 2015. So you can see some enrollment growth numbers, so you can see where some of the changes that we're having. This changes annually. The green arrows at the far right are basically items that would be impacted by this building plan. That's why they're labeled that way. Some of the growth, though, looking at the like Cedar Grove plus 3.8%, Rock Springs Elementary, Rock Springs Middle 4.2 and 4.7. So just won't read to you, but summarizing that, if you'll take a look at the bottom, we're still seeing some growth at the Smyrna Laverne area in that range, but strangely this year, do not know why, the high schools have grown by 3.2%. It's kind of one of those demographic and things that happen, but for some reason this year, I can tell you a couple of reasons why and point to you why we're not seeing quite as much growth this year as you've seen in the past. Look at Blackman Elementary, minus 226. So they went from over 1,100, which was really overcrowded with all the portables, and the city opened Overall Creek. Thank you. We've talked about that for years. There's city students, and so that was 226. Some of that same was also tied to, Brown's Chapel. If you look at Brown's Chapel, you'll also see a reduction there because Brown's Chapel zone comes all the way up to the avenue. And so some of those parents, basically when they got a closer city school or elementary school, they chose to go there. So most of that's probably a one-time deal, but as more people move in, certainly they should go to that school. So I think the second item, and I've said this several times before, the city did offer free breakfast and lunch for all students, regardless of whether they qualified for free or reduced this year. We were seeing roughly for the sixth graders, 50% of the sixth graders in the city came to Rutherford County in sixth grade. So they're rising 50%. It was in prior years been 50%. This year is closer to about 35%. And honestly, what you look at is if you have two children in the school system and you pay for breakfast and lunch, you probably save close to $800 annually if you'll put the paper and pencil to it to do that. The break-even point for us to use federal lunch monies to offer free to everybody is closer to 55%, and we're about 42%. So we're not close to that break-even point. We'd have to take money from other budgets, other instructional things to accomplish that. But again, anybody that qualifies for free or reduced meals will get them in either system. So basically, I think that's a couple of things that explain some of those changes we saw this year, which will be mostly a one-year anomaly. Let's look at the second thing if we can, portable assignments, and we kind of provide this for you each year. This is another one that shows you where there's actually 146 portables, 143 of those basically are in the classrooms or used directly. The others coupled with our health clinics and one maintenance use at Smyrna Primary. So that kind of lets you see where the portables are. So when you talk about something like John Coleman, you see 15 portables there. So you can see very quickly when we talk about building that two-story wing at John Coleman, we can quickly have the potential to eliminate 15 portables there. And the same is true for the other areas. You look down again at some of the others that we're talking about there. The new buildings with John Coleman, certainly with the 15 there. So Blackman Elementary, we're now beginning to see where we might be able to adjust some of those. But anyway, that's one of the board's goals, to try to get rid of portables as quickly as we can.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Your totals that it showed on the sheet before shows that we have only had an increase of 504 this year.
That's about what we're seeing. Where it's been 700 or 800 in the past. in,
And a lot was the reasons you said with overall creek, et cetera.
well, I think so. I think,
Yeah.
you see, you can take Brown's Chapel and Blackman Elementary there, and you have almost 300 of that number right there. Now, I think the others, you saw a little bit of change at Oakland Middle and all, but I think most of that's kind of lunch and some other things like that. I really do. But I think it'll be a one-year anomaly mostly. So the other essential, that's the three essentials, that just handle some growth that we've got, replace some buildings that are really, really outdated and needed, and number three, to help back off on the portable sum. So looking at the next step, really will come to our 5-year building program for you to take a look at. That's the 8.5 by 14 sheet, which is basically those of you that were in Health and Ed have seen this particular sheet. Mr. Sandvik has prepared this based upon land, design, sites, and infrastructure, that sort of thing. It's purchased over different years as you do your construction. You do not borrow all that at once. The figure that we originally had was the $57,394,000. For that was what we originally took to Health and Ed. The easiest way to look at it is probably the shorter sheet that is color-coded for you. That kind of does the breakout for the next borrowing cycle. And this would be basically what came, I think, Mr. Jordan, out of your Health and Ed, right?
Chairman's sitting right there.
She is. You remember too. We got 3 of you kind of had to do it again. So
There
that,
seems to be a little bit of controversy about when we approved that first list without the stadium improvements and to finish up those projects. There's $600,000 there for land for Oakland Middle Annex. But in my impression, we didn't approve building that building. We just approved buying that land.
Correct.
And have that conversation another day as far as whenever we start that building.
right.
Okay.
So we only approved the blue.
Huh?
We only approved what's in the blue.
Yeah, with the blue, that's what we're looking at. I'm
Yeah.
trying to give you a look at subsequent
Forecast.
years and
But we had the discussion if you had to finish those up, like the
Right.
furniture and fixtures and things like that.
Of course, the original blue had the middle school in it, $28 million.
yeah, but
So
But for the middle school, we're talking about the Oakland Annex.
that's the land, I think.
The
we're
$10
talking
million in
Oh,
the
I'm
second.
with you.
Yeah, we approved the Smyrna middle school.
And then, and this is where Lisa and I were a little unsure. You asked that we come back with a motion, and we weren't sure if we should leave in Oakland Middle or not. So if you would take out that $10,371,000 and the $600,000 borrowed 2 years out, then you would be fully funding or fully approving, even though it's multi-year funding, the balance of the John Coleman, the Roy Walden, and the Smyrna Middle and site work.
But the land for the Oakland Annex is in
Yes, sir.
immediately, yeah.
Right.
Or soon, yeah.
And again, why are we saying we need to move on the middle school? And again, it's on this sheet where you look at kind of membership, a little kind of points that out. And I apologize, it's not exactly alphabetical order, it's state school number order. This is the way they order them. They don't do it totally. But if you look at Rock Springs Middle, they had 1,059, they've grown by 48. That's due a lot to the apartments that you're seeing that's kind of behind the area in Smyrna up on the hill, behind Target and some other areas like that. That's what's happening there. And we're seeing in that area the Stewart's Creek, again, the other day, the 147 houses, I believe, was where the John Floyd development was approved by the city of Smyrna for that one. So the Stewart's Creek, we have actually closed enrollment next year, any outside enrollment for Stewart's Creek Elementary, Stewart's Creek Middle, because the Stewart's Creek Elementary School has really gotten large on us very quickly. If you look at the middle school is 950 and the elementary is 930. The high school next year, we grandfathered for 2 years, that expires this year. You had a lot of students that finished out, so their senior class is about 280, both their freshman and sophomore class exceed 500. So, I mean, they have the potential, if not, they'll either be our largest or second largest probably next year simply by those adjustment numbers. So Stewart's Creek will be an area for us that by using that we can adjust that property. We can adjust some of both the Rock Springs, the Stewart's Creek. It kind of sits between the two.
Will you talk a little bit about the plans for the John Coleman building after this addition is made? Like how the rest of that building will be utilized?
And that was a good discussion the other night with some people saying we need to tear it down or not tear it down. We've got a couple of options we can do there. One of those, Mr. Clardy, and he's away on an energy saving conference right now. But one of the things that we talked about, he has one maintenance there. We could house maintenance on that end, put several of our vehicles. We're using one portal, for that now, it's at basically Smyrna Primary. The other thing, we have a hands-on science program which takes up quite a few rooms, storage and things at the Walter Hill area that could possibly be shifted there, and that would open those classrooms up for growth if you need it for that particular area. Or in some cases, this was built in the Second World War as part of the Stewart Air Force Base. There's some of it probably needs to come down, to be honest with you. And
So what
that
about the
may be
plans for the
choice.
gymnasium, cafeteria, things like
We
that?
talk about the gymnasium, especially to repurpose that. The library has been built since then. I think I may even have a picture of the John Coleman.
There was an addition in the mid-90s.
Yeah, I've had some questions about that. That's why I wanted you to talk about that.
Yes,
a little bit.
I'm not sure the cafeteria because of the requirements going to work for us there, because you run into so many
But the
new
gymnasium,
things.
we will be able to.
The gymnasiums, we can repurpose and use that, yes.
If you repurpose it, I don't think it would be their
Right,
gymnasium.
It's
that's
small.
right, yes.
What you got?
It's small.
It is very small. And Miss Haley's with us tonight.
It seemed like I remember conversations from years ago that if any of that property ceases to be used for school activity, it goes back to the Coleman heirs. Or whoever donated, which I guess it was the Coleman.
Mr.
But-
Jeffrey, the board attorney, has researched that for us, so as long as it stays, I mean, his research says, you're correct.
Yeah.
He says, as long as we use it for school purposes,
School purposes,
then
yeah.
we can continue to use that. That's what the agreement says. But basically, that's kind of the shape of John Coleman. And again, all we've asked the architect to do is concept to fit the property and the land. It would be a two-story addition, which we're doing more two-story, as we do.
How, the proposed John Coleman, how large?
The new
How many will it, square footage, did I see?
130,000 square feet is basically the two-story there.
People, how many students can it hold?
It could possibly, it could get up into the 800 or 900 range. One of the things that we're running into now, it's a Title I school, higher poverty school, has a number of English as a second language students. And the mayor saw this, which you're running into also at Royal Waldron, that we're having to take some classrooms and chop them into 2 or 3 areas to do interventions for students. I mean, that's really the model that you have to do now. Instead of taking a whole classroom to bring 15 students in or 10 students in, you repurpose and redivide some of those. So depending on how much of that we would have to do, I'm looking, I'm not sure we can do the 900, although Gary said he thinks so, but I'm not sure. We can repurpose.
Well, I'm asking is why, okay, say 800 is what they have in it. That would probably
And
be
you're
fair price
about
for
470.
19 million or whatever. Where are the students going to come from? Because you got West Wilson down the road that's pretty full, but not completely, I would guess. And Smyrna Primary and Smyrna Elementary are small, and they lost people from last year. So where are these kids going to come from if it's 800?
I think that what you're going to see is additional development when we get the new school. I've had several of the Smyrna commissioners, and I'm surprised you haven't heard that several of the real estate developers done. I say, when are you going to do something about John Coleman so that area that goes out towards the lake and all can be developed? So I think has that tendency when we build, they come, but
But a lot of
I don't
that's
want to
government
underbill
land. Yeah,
for that.
a lot of that's government land on the way and that type thing, so you're getting out there. And I think, I doubt right now if a whole lot of people from Wheatley Hills and the Oaks are sending their students there. And plus, they're getting to the older subdivision, so you gotta, they're still expensive houses. Move in. I'm just wondering how long it'll take to fill it up with 800 where they come from.
I agree with Superintendent Odom. I think they've been avoiding John Coleman like the plague. No offense, Miss Haley, but they have. It's been
Well, it's the
a
way
stepchild
housing
school
and-
for 30 years, and there are people doing everything they can not to have to send their kids there. And if we get a new facility there, and
There's a lot of
there'll
home
be
schools and private
there'll be
schools
development
out
in that
there.
area, and the people that'll say, hey, that's a good school. It's a good school now. It's in a terrible building, and I think it'll be a whole different world in there.
You only have 2 elementary schools in Smyrna on that side of 4170. Smyrna Elementary is your other one. It has 749 students, about 40-something% ESL students there. High poverty also. It already has 6 portables, even at Smyrna Elementary there. So that one is over the capacity we can accommodate by itself also.
I've got a comment or two. We asked you to come up with a 5-year plan, and you did, and I appreciate it. It looks like it's a comprehensive 5-year plan, and you all did an excellent job with it. One of the results of it is we're able to see 5 years out what some of our capital expenditures, or at least what some of the capital requests for expenditures are. And so I think when you get to the budget committee, that's when some of these dollar figures come under a little bit closer scrutiny than they have been up to this point. And so I think this committee really needs to begin talking about how we're going to pay for all this. Just to put it in perspective, at the last, presentation I saw of the budget, our county's debt was projected to be about $327 million at the end of this fiscal year. I looked it up. It may have changed a little bit, but it's roughly $327 million. Now, our 5-year school capital program would call for borrowing of around $250 million, $254 million. And then, of course, the general fund would be borrowing for some other projects like the judicial building, and the debt we would be accumulating from those over the next 4 years would be $82 million. So if you add together the $82 million for the judicial building and some roads, and you add together $254 million for some for the 5-year schools capital projects, then you get on this spreadsheet $336 million. So I guess
Can I just tell him that that's at your desk, what he's reading off of? You've got
it's
this
at your desk. So what I'm saying is, over the next 4 years, this county's debt would more than double.
We'd be paying off
We'd be
probably
paying-
150 million.
Well, we're on schedule to pay off about 25 or 26 million a year, so there would be some debt that we're paying off. But I mean, I know that part of this is a response to our population going up, and our population's growing, and we've got to prepare for it. But I don't know that our population's doubling over the next 4 years, but our debt is just about going to be doubling over that period of time. Now, that might be concerning enough, but then I think that this committee and others need to begin to think about how they're going to finance this. Now, with a number of assumptions, we're able to project what we would have to do in order to make the payments on this debt. And we couldn't come close to doing it without a tax increase. But we can actually project what we think the tax increase would need to be in 4 years once we've essentially doubled our county's debt. And the projections that I've seen say that we'd have to raise property taxes by about 62 cents. Now, if you run the numbers from that, I can tell you that that means that on a $150,000 home in this county property taxes in 2018 would have to go up by about $250. I think that there's some people who might think that that's not a big deal, but I think there's a lot of people who would think it's a huge deal. So I think one of our responsibilities up here on this committee tonight is to decide how we're gonna pay for this stuff. Our schools are excellent. Our school board and our director have done an excellent job with them. But we're looking at capital plans, again, that are essentially gonna double this county's budget over the next 4 years. And I think we've got to begin to discuss how to pay for that. Now, I've toured John Coleman, and I see great need there. And I toured Roy Waldron, and I see a lot of need there. And I can tell you I'm inclined to support those projects tonight. But that's not all that's on our agenda to approve tonight. We've got a proposal to approve $55.5 million in projects. And I guess I just need to say I'm kind of uncomfortable with that price tag, particularly looking at the next 3 years, and then the judicial building, which is going to be over $72 million. I think we've got to begin having a serious discussion on how we're going to pay for this stuff.
We've got to put the kids somewhere. You know, we've got to decide if we're going to come up with alternative site plans. I was in Ecuador a couple weeks ago, and they have their small children go to school from 7 to 12, and their middle and high school children go to school from 1 in the afternoon to 7 at night. I want to do something like that. You know, we had some radical thought 10, 11 years ago. A lot of systems across the country went to year-round, and a lot of them abandoned it. I don't know why, but there's very few schools doing year-round and stuff. But you know, that's one reason the stadiums came out of here. We thought this was, at least Health Net, in my opinion, thought this was a list of needs, not wants.
Well, that's great,
You
but
know.
the stadiums were just 1.8 million.
I know, but there's nothing else in here that's for sports facilities or anything else. These are just schools. You
Well,
know?
I've got a couple of ideas I'd like to just toss out at some point. I mean, probably the idea that people will like the least is, while we're taking portables down at John Coleman, it may be that we have to move them to another location for a year or two until we can get a new school built in that location. That's not what we want to do, but it may be the case that you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You take 12 or 15 portables down at John Coleman, and then until you can get the new middle school built, you have to move half a dozen of them over there. That's not appealing, but then I don't think it's appealing to raise property taxes on a $150,000 home by $250 a year. And I'm going to list some of these other ideas that I've heard other people mention over the years, and these are not ideas that are ideal. But 3 that I have heard mentioned, and maybe I should preface this by saying these are responses to the cost of schools that are expensive capital projects and are used, 180 days out of the year. So we've got these big capital projects that we don't use all the time. Now, it's understandable you're not going to use them on Christmas Day, you're not going to use them on Sunday. But there are times of the year where they do sit empty, and we are on the verge of incurring a lot of big expenses for capital projects. So I'm just trying to think of ways that we can use these buildings and get more use out of them. And these are ideas that I've heard other people mention over the years. One would be to have a cohort of students that volunteers to take their courses in the evening or towards nighttime. That's not what most students want to do, and I wouldn't force anybody to do it, but there might be a small cohort of students, maybe at the high school level, who would be interested in doing that. It's not that far-fetched. We have night classes at MTSU, and high school students are a little bit younger, but not that much younger. I'm going to go through this quickly because I don't want to get us off topic here. The second idea is year-round school, where maybe you have 2 different shifts. If we need 180 school days, and there's 365 days a year, then why don't we have 2 shifts, use the school with basically 2 shifts of students so that one shift attends 180 days and the other shift attends the other 180 days. You get off for Christmas, try and find a way so that you get off on Sundays, maybe take the half school days and stack them up so that there's no more of these half school days. Maybe extend the hours so you're not going from roughly 8 to 2:30 or 8 to 3, and instead extend the school day long enough so that maybe you can take some time off for Christmas and some time off on Sunday. That's idea number 2. It's 2 shifts of students, so you try and double the student population that uses these schools. And then the third idea is to have year-round school, but not the kind of year-round school we're accustomed to, where you kind of attend around the calendar year, but you're taking 2 weeks off regularly. Instead, give our high school students the option to volunteer to be part of a special cohort. Don't force people to do this, but give them the opportunity to volunteer to be part of a cohort that attends school year-round, but is literally going to school a lot of the days during the year so that they can graduate in 3 years. If you can get a few students to graduate in 3 years instead of 4 years, then you're getting them out of these expensive high schools and on to other places so that you can admit more students. And again, that idea is not far-fetched. We have students at MTSU who regularly take a heavy load so that they can graduate from college in 3 years. It's hard to do. It's not for most students, but if you could peel off 3 or 4 or 5% of your high school students and get them to volunteer for a program like that, then you might be able to get more use out of these capital projects. In other words, more use out of these schools. Instead of spending $55 or $60 million on a high school that we use 180 days out of the year, let's find a way to use those high schools for more than 180 days out of the year. If our student population is growing at 2 or 3% a year, then we need to find a way to use these buildings 2 or 3% more. That's just a rough rule of thumb.
Mr. Odom?
Yeah, I can respond to some of that. I know you'll be surprised how many we graduate early already. There were 28, I think, graduated from Holloway in December. We have, how many online courses do we offer?
We've already, from July to date, offered over 900 half credits. So you start dividing that by 2 and multiplying it out times 6, and that's the number of years. So you're looking at about 2.5 years for students. You're looking at the equivalent of saving the funds for 2.5 teachers. So that's about $150,000, $60,000.
We also, one of the few counties still does a summer school. Typically in summer school, we'll graduate, we've actually increased the number of periods in the day. We used to graduate about 40, 50 that graduate early in summer school. We offer night school classes. That's basically at Holloway where the night school classes are. And many of those, some of them are making it, but many of those are graduating early. You know, it's hard for me to say exactly how many right now are graduating early, but it's many more than you think. Honestly, we have looked at that.
We put a committee together in 02, 03.
Yeah, we looked at the year round with the multi-track. He's talking about the multi-track.
And talked about different things, and
I actually
went to Las Vegas and talked to the people out there because they did it for a while and they abandoned it.
San Diego, I went. I was one of the ones that went. Their influx of course, from Mexico was driving much of that to what they were doing. On another year, traveled to there's a group year-round school convention that I went down to Florida. Basically, when they built Disney World down there, they have since abandoned it. The only one that I know of on kind of this side of the Mississippi is right out of St. Louis. I actually visited that one. It's a little, is it Lake Charles, St. Charles?
There is a Lake Charles.
There's a Lake Charles that was it's a really a compact community.
St. Charles.
They do and they do the daycare for them. There's really, that group has they've made it work because it was transportation wise and everything was so small. But I don't really know of another one.
Wake County, Raleigh, Durham.
I don't know that they're doing it now. Are they doing it now?
I think they're still doing some, but they've had a lot of problems with it.
I can tell you the people who do it said it's the hardest thing in the world they've ever done, and they told us that even while you think you gain, you never gain quite as much percent as you want. Here's some of your issues is parents was an issue, and one of the ones, you got an elementary kid and you got a high school kid. Well, if you want the high school kid there in football, the football season's also got to be there when the band has to be there, scheduled during that time. The elementary parent wants to make sure their kid is on a track same as that one. So the other thing was where you're not running buses that many days, that cost certainly is there. Your operational costs go up. I mean, basically that's what they told us. You have a significant increase in operational, but you do save on building. cost.
Well, see, I wouldn't think that's the case. See, I would think that if you're gonna build a brand-new middle school, then you're gonna have to staff it with brand-new teachers. So those teachers are either gonna be teaching at the new middle school, or they're gonna be teaching year-round. I wouldn't think operational costs
The other
would change that
operational
much.
costs, from my experience.
I mean, I would think personnel
Outside.
is the number one expense we have in a, I mean, outside of
Yes,
capital
yes.
projects, it's personnel. But these teachers they're gonna have to teach the additional students, whether it's on two shifts in the same school building, or whether it's at a new school building.
The
So-
state has them on a 200-day contract. I mean, that we have to pay them for 200 days, with a minimum day of 6.5 hours. I mean, we've looked at certain things like, could you run 2 shifts a day unless the state changes something? You're 13 hours if you could bring them in as quick as you did in a day. And you can't hardly do that. So you're starting pretty early and late. And then you got the 200 days. So typically the same people. Now they'll do our summer school, and they're doing some of our online. Now the nice thing about the online schools, for the majority of them, parents and other people are paying for it. For the night schools, they're paying for it. For summer school situations, some of those that are free reduced, we do pay for that. But some of the things that we're doing now, people are paying for that's not coming directly out of our budget. We try to cover the cost for that. So
Maintenance and repair costs skyrocket, which
I was going to mention that some of the other, just as you were talking, Charlie, I was just remembering previous conversations about, the staffing and payroll being a huge impact. The buses, you mentioned that you've got to run them, multiple times now. I mean, you're doubling that. You probably, your cafeteria expense and, your food cost is the same, but you still got to add, the additional staffing. And then maintenance was always the big issue that we've heard, is that if there's no downtime for these schools, then when are you going to do maintenance? So we're wearing out those buildings that we're spending this money on. We're wearing them out faster. So I don't.
I've got 2 responses to that,
Okay.
just to keep the discussion going. In terms of maintenance costs, I would think maintenance cost on one building would be less than trying to maintain 2 buildings, the old school and then the new school that we're building. And then the second comment that I've heard, I won't tell who I got it from, they said that if Walmart can stay open round the clock and keep their stores open, then maybe we can figure out how to maintain and repair the buildings without needing to take 2 weeks off like they do. Now, that's designed to just illustrate, just kind of be silly. But I mean, there are entities that don't shut down for 2 weeks at a time to repair, and Walmart's an example.
The other thought that I had too was, I know we just recently went through a lot of steps to implement energy savings. And so I guess that's the other thing I'm wondering about, is how would we lose that energy savings
Well,
benefit?
we turn the heat and the air off at night.
Yeah.
Now, that sort of thing. That would affect it, that piece.
And then the extracurricular, like you mentioned, I mean, how do we factor that in?
In the places they had it before, when I traveled to one of these, I went to, actually one in Florida, I didn't ask the people that were in education, I asked the people where I ate my meals. The people that was waiting on the tables. You're on school, what do you think about it? What do you say? And I didn't find anybody that liked it. They really didn't. My kids are separate, they're not at the same time, we can't get things worked out. We actually ran a so-called year-round. It was at Siegel Middle and was at Cedar Grove a few years ago, and parents could choose which track they wanted to do. They could go to the summer. After about 2 years, maybe 3 of that, the number of people that were signing up for that summer track was so low that the costs were going up. You were having to have administrative people there, you have to have cafeteria staff there, you having to have all the other people there for a low number of students. So you definitely couldn't let people choose. You'd have to say, this is what you got to do.
Well, maybe that would slow down the growth, though, if you made them go to it, right, Ken?
I don't know.
There's another thing. Didn't you say that the last portables we bought were 2007, roughly?
I was thinking it's a little earlier.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's just say that's 8 years ago. Yeah. You start moving a mess of those from one end of the county to the other.
We will move a few this year. I can tell you
Do
now,
they
I can
hold
look at Rock Springs Middle.
Those are the only ones we've gotten rid
There's gotta
of
be
in the
some portables
17 years
before we
I've
get
been
the
here,
building
and
built.
some that we leased, which
The
was
portables
not a
at
good
John
arrangement.
Coleman been there so long, I'm not sure they can be moved.
Yeah, some of these portables are
They're
junk.
just
They
out
they
of
won't
end of
stand
life
another move.
and past,
Yeah.
really.
We got rid of some at Roy Walton before. We had to surplus them, and some people bought them. They couldn't move them. They'd tear them apart.
Of course, we get sticker shock looking at the price of these buildings. Paying for the buildings isn't a big deal. Operating them's a big deal. That's the money you gotta come up with every year out of your tax base. You can't borrow that money to pay school teachers and all, you know, it takes, what, $1 million around a high school a year or something like that? Or more? You know what the number is, but.
To start it,
you know,
it takes
but,
About
$3 to $4 million.
you know, so
Let me-
that's the hard money to come up with is operational money.
But let me go back to something that you said. We said before, we spend $980.80 less than the state average last year per pupil, which is about $40 million with our 41,000 students. And I don't say that with chagrin. I say it like you. I think we have run a very efficient operation. And if you go to the per pupil cost, where we're having to run 800, 900 in your elementary, your middle, that sort of thing, I mean, you're packing them in there, but your per pupil cost do not go up near as much if you got if we're in a county that's got a 350 school and a 250 school and that sort of thing that you see over much of the Mid-Cumberland. So one of the reasons we can operate at about $1,000 less per pupil is because of the size of the school and because we're very efficient in saving money, like geothermal, metal roofs, higher on the front end, but those things that we're doing in design to save money. I spoke to Leadership Rutherford yesterday. If you don't count the pad for it, Stewart's Creek High School, the pad to development, and the stadium, that school was built, the building, for $89.50 a square foot. Try that somewhere. Let any of your people tell you.
Last time
Now
Williamson was spending about 130 or 40.
They were. And when you go up with your pad and you go out and you do your paving and that sort of thing, you run up to about 112. But we still build them much less than the others. Mr. Clardy is very good at that and looks at it very close in design. Not fancy, but very functional.
There's just one other thing that I'll add, just from being on Planning Commission for many years. We've looked at this every time a new development comes in. We especially looked at it hard when we were approving, hundreds of lots every month. The unfortunate reality is growth does not pay for itself. It takes on average, the last statistic that I read is that for a new neighborhood, it takes that homeowner 8 years to pay back to that community what it is they reaped in benefit for them to begin. And, we're adding people so fast that they, we just have to be able to keep up. And obviously we're not. If we have 15 portables, and Ms. Haley, what's the percentage of your second graders that'll never come back in the building? Was it?
I have 3 classes out there.
But
I have 5 classes.
But a second grader will never come back in the building. How many of them?
Well,
You
out
told
of-
us the percentage.
Out of the total, 40% of the folks.
40% out there, but I mean, that's the
40% are
whole
out there.
school. Different grades out there.
Right, but you said by the time they get to
About
second.
60% are out there.
Yeah, and they'll never come back in the building.
No ma'am.
That's not an equitable education.
Well, your point on property tax
Yeah.
is right on too. Growth, people listen to us and say, well, it's growing, you should have it.
Right.
It costs almost in local money somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000. We spend $8,000 and something per pupil, but over 50% state. There's federal monies in there, and there's 32 point something percent that's local monies for that. So if that average house is paying $800 to $1,200 in what you're seeing in some of these high density subdivisions, they got 2 kids in school.
Well, we're spending $5,000 to $6,000 to educate those 2 kids of local money.
Right.
Yeah.
If they don't buy their spend their sales tax here, if they don't shop in Rutherford County with sales tax, you're really under.
Well, the thing is, the state's, it's like it always has. The state comes down with things that we gotta do. We got pupil size, we got graduation credentials we had to have, the new ones, the retention.
Response to intervention.
Yeah, response to intervention, yeah, or TIs. And this type thing, and that's just people just helping the ones who don't. And there's no, well. That's not-
We'll get into that at budget.
Apartments usually
Well-
have very low children. A lot of them are Mr. Kaplan asked about apartments, and I just happened to see something, the city did a study on apartments a few months ago, and I was actually at one of the city council meetings when they did that. And they presented it, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but apartments don't affect your schools near that much, because most of them are either college kids or they're professionals, whatever. There aren't that many children on a whole coming out of apartments, you know, and also apartments are taxed at a commercial tax rate, so apartments are closer to paying their way anyway. But there's very few, it seemed like it was like less than a half a child per resident or a fourth of a child per resident or something like that in an apartment where in standard construction it's over one or around one or something like that. So there's not that many kids as a whole coming out of apartments.
Jordan, could I ask for a favor? Could we, for the motion that's forthcoming at some point, split up these schools and separate John Coleman and Roy Waldron and the land for Eagleville? I'm just asking you to do that because I'd like to vote for them.
We've already done the land for Eagleville.
Right, but it's
Yeah.
on this list. I'd like to have the
Oh.
opportunity to vote for those. I'm not sure I'm going to vote for the other ones, but
I would urge you
I'd
to
like
vote
to
for the
split up
land
for
for the
that
Oakland
reason.
Middle Annex, because that land will get developed, and we may not build that annex for some point in time, but if there's houses put all over it, then we lose that option, so.
The Smyrna,
Smyrna
I'm
land,
telling you,
yeah.
you grew over 3% last year there. If you don't, pick that land up. where
But you
somebody
can make
gets
any
it.
motion you want.
I haven't made a motion. I'm just asking if we
I
can
mean,
split
but,
it
yeah,
up.
we can. I guess it can.
Well, yeah, and actually for me, and what we were trying to accomplish with that, from Health and Ed to this one, is what projects are you approving? You know, we'll deal with when do we borrow for it at another time, but what projects are you approving within the next year? What's that? Using this list.
Which projects do we need to have funded for the next borrowing?
Yeah.
According to Health and Ed,
It's the 55,550.
Okay, so it's not just that, that's where we go to the John Coleman, is that you need approval to say the whole project is done,
To add the 800.
to do 19,865. You know, we may borrow it all a little differently than the way Jeff has got it presented.
we talked about that a little bit, that the finance or Mr. Sanders come up with the numbers to finish those projects out. In my opinion, it's all those projects except for the Oakland Middle Annex, because that we're just gonna get the land and have it, then decide later when we build that building. Is that your recollection?
Well, I remember us talking about there were going to be some numbers that were going to be fleshed out. And was
Because
it-
you gotta share with the city too, so
Right.
that's a whole nother number too.
Right.
Land in Smyrna area for
But
Illinois.
my understanding was everything that we looked at that's on this short list, and I see what you're talking about now, Lisa, with adding the,
Just using John Coleman.
just using John Coleman.
And say, you know, if that's the agreement that you agree to fund John Coleman at 19,865,000.
And really you need to do the same thing for Roy Waldron.
And
You're gonna
Roy
do the
Waldron,
addition, yeah.
4,720,000. That's the point I was trying
I
to make
got
in Health and Ed.
I got you.
Well, if we're going to separate them, then I'll go ahead and get the process started. I'd like to make a motion to approve funding for the John Coleman addition and renovations and the Roy Waldron addition.
Both years' worth.
The whole
Because
project.
you can't start without finishing.
So that's
Is
the-
that correct?
Right, I just-
Your 19 million plus the 800,000 in the second year?
Right, it's the whole project, but
Yeah.
it's just those two out of the list. And then we can consider the other ones separately.
Neither one of those substantially increase your capacity. Remember that.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Just second to get things moving along.
Okay, we got a second.
Yeah.
Further discussion?
Can I make an amendment to that?
You can make an
Okay, I
amendment.
make an amendment, we add the land for the middle school in Smyrna and the Oakland Annex land to it.
Okay, we have an amendment to add the 600,000 for the Oakland Annex and 2.7 million for the Smyrna. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's Smyrna, that's the elementary and
Middle.
the middle school.
And doesn't the 800 roll with that for some site, Jeff?
Down at the bottom?
If you proceed with construction,
No, we're not talking construction, we're
Right,
talking
we're
land
just
at this
talking
point in time.
purchasing the land, no.
So, okay, we have an amendment. Do we have a second to the amendment?
I'm not clear on the amendment.
Basically, it's everything except for, if you go down there and you look at it, it's everything except for the middle school.
The middle school in Smyrna.
Right.
What is the amendment?
They must add the land for the Smyrna area middle and elementary and the Oakland Middle Annex, the land for that. Yeah, that's, Commissioner Kaplan just said, that's got us up to everything but the Smyrna area middle school, is that correct?
There's land for the Eagleville practice field.
No,
No, that's
So
already.
that was already in there. So that's got us up to everything but the Smyrna area middle
We
school.
think we can have it in
But you
place.
didn't, you didn't specify that yet. So you're looking at the 73,700 minus the, I'm sorry, not 1,000,000, the 73 million minus the 34 million for this middle school in the Smyrna area?
And minus the Oakland Middle.
We've got an amendment
Control
on the
of
floor.
10
We
million.
probably need a second before we go too far on discussion. If anybody wants to second the amendment.
I'll second.
All right. Now, go ahead.
It did not include that 10,371,000. His amendment, but that still hasn't been,
That didn't come out of health and ed either, though.
no, that's what I'm saying, so that's not.
That's an argument for a later date.
So you're not working with the $73 million number is what you're saying?
No,
Right.
no.
So we're looking at purchasing land for Oakland and Smyrna Middle and Elementary, is that right?
It's a
Yes.
piece that you.
That's the way I was understanding it, so.
Complex.
And if this amendment passed, and if the motion passed as amended, if both of them, it would be the entire list, basically without the middle school in Smyrna, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, my understanding would be that Mr. Commissioner Schaefer's motion didn't include the remaining funding for the Oakland Middle Annex. It was just for the land.
Just for the land, that's all the land.
Did you say that?
We haven't, that never came out of health and ed even, so this is on this list, but
Ron,
you
some
know,
of
the
the other
$10 million
lines, some of the
isn't-
other lines were continuing the projects
Yeah.
all the way out until they're
Yeah.
completed, so
And
that's
I don't
fine.
think anybody's had any intention at this point in time to vote for the $10 million for that annex. We just want to get the property in our possession so we would have control of it.
It does include that leftover for Eagleville too, the amendment.
The 20,000.
Yeah, that was in Commissioner Baum's original.
Well,
believe-
I think that prior motion was for $44,000, but that wasn't the full cost. The remainder of the cost is on this list right here.
I know, I'm talking about the motion you made to start this. You mentioned
You did not.
Eagleville, did you not?
I don't think you did.
I have
Oh,
John
I thought
Coleman
he
and Roy
did.
Walton.
Okay, well,
I think for just a brief moment, we thought that the $20,000 on this list had already been approved, but it hasn't. What we approved earlier out of the, was the $44,000. There's $20,000 in cost remaining, and it's on this.
my mistake. Would either one of you like to include the Eagleville practice field in your either amendment or motion?
At this point, I'm willing to add it to my motion. We've already approved $44,000 towards it.
If that's okay with the second came from Mr. Schaefer. So that gets us back. If this amendment passes and this motion, we're up to everything but the Smyrna Middle School
Okay, I need to clarify that. So when you say everything,
that's on this list.
right, okay, but we said we needed, are we going ahead and approving the outfitting of John Coleman and Roy
Yes.
Waldron?
Yes.
The 800 and the 341?
Yes.
Well, the prices are different.
But we've still got a problem with growth.
As we said, it doesn't address
Yeah.
growth.
And we've kind of ridden the coattails of Stewart's Creek High School about all we can. This year, all we're doing is the addition at Blackman. Eagleville's not really gaining much capacity, maybe a little bit, but
They're up to about 900. We would have thought just a few years ago when you look at it.
But we are leaving you the 2.7 for the land? Yes?
That's in
Yes.
the amendment.
That's in the amendment.
Okay, just making sure.
All right.
Your middle school Smyrna area has the,
Look at Smyrna
Impact.
Middle, Rock Springs Middle, and Stewart's Creek Middle. If you want to look at those three numbers, you'll see where you're going to be in a year or two.
With a lot of the middle with the annexes.
And that school would open fall of 16.
Fall of 17.
fall of 17.
We actually pushed it back.
They pushed it to fall of.
Rock Springs, what was the other one?
And Smyrna
Because he
has
can't,
11
you can't
quarters.
start that quickly to do.
It takes a year and a half, so the construction contract will come. will
We're
start.
not opening
Construction
for 2
started
years. It
July.
doesn't take 2 years to build a
This
middle
is
school.
summer.
But we don't have plans done, we don't have pad developed, and the time that you have to start, the cycle then would not be at the start of a year. If you opened it, it would be mid-year. If you-
Well, we're buying you the land
Yes.
right now, so that would be a start.
Yes.
Well, if you, the construction start for the actual building is July of 16. If you could go ahead and determine how many dollars you need to get this pad, get the land, and then get enough money to do the pad, then you wouldn't actually have to start. We'd have a little bit of time.
In the past, we might not have done the pad, but we have at points given you design money. Because that way we get design, have the design, put it on the shelf, and decide if we build it and set open in 17, open in 18, the design is already there. That burns how many months? 3, 4, 5 months doing design. So, I mean, if all these amendments and motion pass, you could theoretically still come back through Health and Ed with the design money for that, because we know the school's going to come at some point in time. And that, we could probably still be in good shape to open in fall of 17, you know, if we decided the numbers came in, if we want and stuff. And that would give us a little bit of breathing room as far as voting for a full, you know, we're up over, pushing a little over 70 million right here. But
We have found the pad, you know, when we did Stewart's Creek Elementary in the middle, we did put the pad for the high school. And one of the things Mr. Clardy said very much, so when you get the company there that's moving the dirt and the pad, it really saves you money than bringing them back. We've done the same thing at Rockvale. You've got room for a high school out there at some time, and you basically put that pad
yeah,
there.
you want to get the pad up, but you don't want to get
So
it
you
to
wanna do
the
both when you
absolute
do it.
elevation, because then you have to worry about deterioration due to
Right.
weather and stuff. You
Right.
want to rough it in. But
I mean, like Commissioner Allen just noted, I mean, keep in mind, your Smyrna Middle is the one that has your 11 portables. And so that's the, in your Rock Springs, as you've indicated, you've got some, your third largest growth, fourth largest growth out of all of them.
He's already requested portals for next year. What maybe we plan to move to him?
To Rock Springs,
Yeah.
I have to move 4 classrooms.
You're probably gonna get 2 double wides there next year.
we've got an amendment.
An amendment for land at Smyrna for 2.7 million, Oakland Middle 600,000, for a total of 3.3 million. Is that what I heard?
Or that amendment to the original motion. So is everybody ready to vote on the amendment?
Hang on, I'm still adding, give me just a second. I just want to make sure we all agree on what the number is we're voting on.
Restate it again.
Yeah, restate the amendment,
The
please.
amendment.
I have land for the Smyrna area for middle and elementary, 2.7 million, and Oakland Middle Annex, $600,000.
That's to be added to the top of Commissioner Baum's
And
motion.
where's the Eagle 20,000?
It's in the original
He
motion.
put that,
It's
he
in the
agreed to put that in his
motion.
original
Yes.
motion.
Okay, good.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
I'm sorry, say it to me one more time, what was adding?
You talking about
Oh, the motion, read me the motion.
Land for Smyrna area, middle and elementary school, 2.7 million. Oakland Middle Annex, 600,000.
Yes.
Is
I'll
it your
vote yes.
vote or you agree?
Yes,
with
that's
it?
my vote, yes.
If you agree with the numbers, or that was your vote. Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Okay, now we're back to the motion as amended. And if I'm not mistaken, that motion is basically everything here except for the middle school Smyrna area for $28,786,000. And it does include the finishing up of John Coleman for $800,000 and Roy Walden for $341,000. And if everybody's in agreement with that, we'll call the roll.
It's for all of John Coleman and Roy Waldron, right?
Yeah.
Right, it's
Yeah, for,
the land, John Coleman at 19,865, Roy Waldron at 4,720,000.
okay, all right.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. All right, that gives us back down to just the Smyrna Middle School, and I do believe we're sending to the full commission to buy the property. And personally, just as my opinion is, we've got plenty of time to come back through and ask for design money and stuff, and we can have this school open by, if you were gonna try and open it by fall of 16, I was having heartburn, but fall of 17 is very doable. You know, we've got time to think about that, I believe. Anybody feel free to disagree.
I feel like I would be remiss in not standing up for the families in Smyrna if I wouldn't at least make a motion to keep that, to continue to approve that this year. And then you all can go on record being against it, but I must go on record being for it.
So your motion is
I'm making a
to,
motion to approve the Smyrna Middle School, in the Smyrna Middle School area, the $28,786, followed by the $5,246,000.
well, for $28,000 school.
I know you would, yeah, sorry. That's homeschool, sorry, yeah.
But personally, I'm going to support the project, but I think we can do it a little bit at a time, everybody get over some indigestion, and we can approve the design, and then we can still make a decision at a later date on if we pull the trigger when, and we keep proceeding down the line. But we have a motion, do we have a second?
Doug Schaefer? These are your people too.
Going once, going twice? Motion fails for lack of a second.
I want
And-
to make a comment on it. You know, I support, we're going to have to build that school out there. But I think one thing we got to look at is the mess that they have up in Nashville with just cutting out the insurance thing and all this. And I saw where they say the budget this year is 179 million out of balance right now for the year we're in. And to me, it'd be wise to see some things about what the state's going to do to us come July 1st. They haven't been too good to us in the past, is what I'm saying. So let's see.
You love those unfunded mandates.
Yeah.
Well,
You can at least see and know where we are.
Sandy seems like he has something to say.
Well, and I do remember, in order to open it for fall of 2017, we will need to be borrowing this money unless you're comfortable with an internal loan next fiscal year. It's not,
You have to have the money before July
well, we will have to have authorization to proceed well before July in order to have it open. So we're not deferring it for too long.
You gotta go get a contract on a piece of property and everything.
Sure, but it's still, we will be coming back.
I think it's totally understood.
Before y'all leave,
Thank
you.
I just want to make sure that we did not include the elementary school Smyrna area $800,000. I did not have that on any list. We pulled that out.
Right.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody agrees.
Well,
that
it's
we're all
included
set.
now with the middle school and elementary where
It's
land were included together.
Tell me what you're pulling out. This
That was
last
it.
one.
Very last,
100,000.
very last line, 800,000.
Yes, that was the side. Correct.
That was not voted on.
I got you. Yep.
That it? Everybody good on school system? Let's move on to the parking assessor. Some of you guys don't want to stay with us the rest of the time.
Nice and green. Where we're at.
I failed to recognize school board members Estes and Jordan over there. Glad you all were able to be with us.
Don't run away.
Mr. Mitchell, are you still awake?
Anybody go out for coffee?
You have a budget in the cars, Mr. Mitchell?
You all can just vote yes. My proposal is to rearrange some funds internally through the elimination of a couple of open positions that we have
to purchase pictometry for the county. It's a system that we purchased 2 years ago and has permitted us to work very efficiently in the review process, reviewing parcels in the county. It's also a technology that we share with several other departments, and I've given a breakdown over the last 18 months. It's on page 2 of the little handout that I have right there of the usage from the different departments. The other images that we have are if we don't get pictometry, there's a current image that is on the GIS system of a like property as opposed to what we have with pictometry, and it kind of visually gives you an illustration of how important the technology is for us in making determinations of value. It's very important that we're accurate in our assessment of property so that we can make sure we get everything that we need on the tax base, because that lowers the burden on any individual. Included are also several letters of recommendation from different department heads on how they've used pictometry and how they find value in it for the department's safety, EOMA, as well as codes and planning.
And this pictometry, from your perspective, can also do a lot more. You can measure from the pictometry,
we can
whereas
measure from the desktop.
GIS is not quite clear enough with the shadows and all.
No. We can measure. From it, we can also do runs of length. We can do aerial heights. We can do grades. The fire department, Chief Farley is using it to do pre-planning to lower the ISO rating for the parcels externally in the county because he has to have disaster plans in place. What he's using it for is capturing an image of an area and going through and doing hose runs, determining if it's uphill or downhill, how many feet that he'll need of pipe to run to a site, locating where the fire hydrants are, and he can save that in a work group that he can have when ISO comes through. And in the event that there is a disaster, he can actually share that information with the sheriff's department, with the ambulance department, or with other fire departments that might be called to respond to the scene. One of the situations that Chief Farley brought up, he said there are swimming pools a lot of times in the backyard. He says when there is a fire, the power is off. Most of them happen at night. He says what we don't want is a guy under full gear going into a backyard and walking into a pool and drowning because nobody knows it's there. Or if there is a fire, you not knowing that there's a propane tank back behind the house. With these, you can note all of the locations of any hazards that are there. I was told Commissioner Gurley was sharing with me that out on Highway 99, they had a situation where a gentleman had barricaded himself into the house, and the sheriff's department printed off copies of the house from different areas, and they handed those out to the tactical squad. So when they were going out there, they knew exactly where the entrances were to the house, how far it was to any obstacles for cover that their responders would have to go through. So there's a broad use beyond just what we use it for. We are the heavy users in the county government, but we're not the only one, and it's one of the few technologies right there that do allow sharing cross-platform. Recently, the GIS system went down in the county because there was a virus that got on from the city of Murfreesboro, and the system was shut down for a week. The only system that was up and operating was our system, and the codes department and planning said that if they didn't have that, they would have been dead in the water for that period of time because they had nothing that they could use. So it also works as a good backup system to the other systems that we have in place because it operates independently from it.
How is it that you're able to eliminate 3 positions? That sounds like an awful lot from a department your size.
It is, but if it's what I have to give up in order to get this technology, I'm that committed to getting it. It's that important for the progress of the county. The state says we're going to be growing 2,000 parcels a year for the next 4 years. And that's based off of, the state's generally conservative in their growth estimates, and that was the information that we agreed to as an estimate in a reappraisal budget back in 2014 when we finished up. So the growth is coming. We need to be able to have frequent flights once every 2 years so that we can track the change across the county. So if we have to give up the positions, we have to inspect the properties.
Are these vacant positions, or are you
Right
letting
now,
people off?
currently they're vacant positions. We intend on filling them over the next 18 months, but we can put that off till later. It's more important that we have this technology now because we have to get in a flight path.
Okay, so they're vacant positions.
Okay, so when they have to do their reviews in the assessor's office every year as they take part of the county, they can now look on the computer and pick it up, and you can measure from here, you can see any changes. Plus another thing it does, even with electric vehicles, you're gonna save on gas because they're outer parts of the county, they won't have to be driving out to see the existing ones unless there's been.
Theoretically, you can view many times the number of properties in
What
one
it
day
takes
you
to
can
drive
get in your
from
car
one
and go out
place
there.
to the other.
So we sell all the cars over there.
Or take them to other departments.
Take
We
them
have,
to
we have other cars.
The sheriff's selling
departments
parts
that need
$2,000
cars.
No, but it is.
Well, what we can do, what we use too, we're the only assessor's office in the state that has wireless hotspots in our vehicle. So we can track the placement of the vehicles, and we can also work wirelessly from the laptop. So as they pull up to inspect a neighborhood, they don't have to download the parcels. They can operate in real time. So they can pull pictometry up from their laptop, and they can see what's in the backyard, something that would not be evident from the street. Or we had an instance last week where a fellow says, I don't want your people coming out there onto my property. Next time I see them, I'll shoot them. You know, I'm sorry, we made a note, call the guy before anybody goes out, but we eliminate that bother altogether if we've got this. We can do the inspection of the person's property without them even knowing that we viewed their property because the image is there.
Okay, so what he's asking us to do, and I recommend this and support this very, very much. It's a 6-year agreement. We're gonna have to execute an agreement that we fly every other year. The every year cost to do this flight every 2 years is about $135,000 a year. So you're gonna see enough money here to provide enough money for us to have a 6-year life of what we're doing before we have to do anything else. Okay, we are funded it out of his existing budget.
This 135 is the first year.
And it's about that much every year succeeding thereafter.
So
We'll
what's
have to put that once
Every
a
year or every other year?
Every year.
Every year.
Okay, now, the other question is, Brian Robinson has been doing the flyovers with the, will this take that place
No, it
place
will
of
not.
that?
We'll still have to do that.
Why?
But
Well, I don't think Brian's in here to tell us, but we share this data with all the other jurisdictions, et cetera. This can be shared too as well. But,
Well, it looks like this is in greater detail than what we're getting with the flyovers with Brian's. Have y'all checked to
That
see if
one-
we can do that? I mean, I'm asking.
Brian is not, yes, we've had this discussion, and he's gonna
Okay.
tell you straight up that we have to do it. Now, I don't know what this resolution here, this was 3-inch resolution here. That picture should be as good as this other stuff over here. I don't know why that picture's not that good. What he's gonna do is fly the same resolution on the commercial area that we flew the first time. So this imagery shouldn't necessarily be any better than we already got.
So come June, when we have the budget talks with the assessor's office, when he comes before us, he's gonna recommend eliminating 3 positions.
He's gonna
Well, that's what he's doing right now.
Now, tonight?
Right now.
We're gonna do that tonight.
Be good.
It's self-funded.
So I'll make a motion to approve the request.
I second it.
Item number 21 is a contract with pictometry, so we've got.
That's coming next.
That's coming next.
That's coming next.
Right.
But
This
with,
amendment is funding those contracts.
but it also
But
is
they ought to
doing,
be hand in hand.
it's doing a secondary thing, and that's providing funding for the personal property audits. It's 2 things. There's
For
2
the personal
contracts
property
next.
audit,
It
audit
is a
is in
small
between.
piece of it, yeah.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Well, I'm asking a lot of questions. That doesn't mean that I'm against this project. I am, but, it just frustrates me that we're paying paying twice for an airplane to fly over. I mean, we need to look into that and see if there's any way we can get around it, especially if we've got better resolution on this than what we're getting in the other contract. Maybe you know the answer.
You've got oblique resolution, you don't have straight down resolution on it. But I'll confirm this with Brian and let him give you a statement as to.
You're saying it feels like duplication.
It is.
You're saying why
duplication.
can Brian not use this?
Exactly.
Knox County does contract with Pictometry to fly their full set. They have an option to add that for an additional cost. It's, what's it called? It's called I think it's AccuCheck. That has more detailed engineering we don't need things for our purposes to engineer standards.
They need elevation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, with LiDAR elevations, they can do that. It's an additional cost that they fly at the same time, and they get a discount. That's why Knox County went that way.
You can probably get Brian to get with you about that before the commission meeting next Thursday, and either he or you one report on that.
Because what are we paying, around 300,000 every time we fly over?
1 year.
We don't fly every year,
That's
but
fine.
there are off years, but yes.
But I think, is that not a multi-year
Yeah,
contract as well?
it's like 3 years or 4.
I don't know.
I mean, we may be tied in on the contract right now, but I think it's worth looking at.
Well, certainly, we always need to look at saving, not duplicating if that's at all possible.
You can get those answers to us before we vote on this at the commission level next week. And if there's no further discussion, we'll call the roll.
We're voting on the amendment only.
Right.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. I've been asked to take a break, but let's get through with Mr. Mitchell before we take a break here.
Oh, let's make him wait.
I have chicken tenders waiting for me at home.
I think I got cold cereal.
Personal property audit, yeah.
The state mandates every year that we conduct an audit. They'll pick out the parcels in tangible business, personal property that they want us to review. Usually it's about 10%. And we have had in the past an internal auditor to do that. We've been unsuccessful in finding the correct candidate for that position, and in the process of needing to restructure our department so that we can cover things more efficiently. We've decided to eliminate that position and simply go with continued contracted service that we have with the company currently, which is GS&A.
Is that one of the 3 positions we just did away with?
Yes.
Well, then we got away with, we're having to backfill with a contract position, so there went some of our savings, but.
What's the cost difference between the two?
It's about
There's an
six-
amendment here, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
We
it's
already
about,
did it.
The amendment.
yeah. It's
Oh,
about
that was
six-
in the previous
It's
one,
part of the
$50,000.
Yeah,
I think
it
we've
was-
already approved this, don't we?
Yeah, it was included in that amount right there, I think. This is just approving the contract for it. It's,
The
the
estimate was
contract is $61,000 is what the contract was for.
So this amendment there included $21,000 more. We added $21,000 in the previous amendment to the 40 you already had available.
Okay.
And this is just approving the contract, and we basically approved this in our last motion, apparently.
You approved the
And you
money.
need a motion on this one?
Yes, we do.
Motion
We need
to
a
approve.
contract.
Motion to approve the contract. Mr. P, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr.
And
Allen?
I'm not sure whoever is going to need to sign those, right?
I'll put that in my motion, thank you.
Do we need to call the roll on this? We're spending money.
That's a contract.
Call the
Commissioner
roll.
Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. All right.
I have a question for Mr. Mitchell before we cut him loose.
Yes, ma'am.
It's just, the timing
We're
is
not
appropriate?
Wait, he's got another.
He's got another, okay. Is it, well, just while we're talking about the personal property assessment, I'm having, because those notices just went out, I'm having lots of people call me and ask about those. 2 things. One, I know you're just the messenger, so you're not the one levying the tax, you're just enforcing it. But do you have any insight on the wisdom to make people pay for things they already own and they already paid taxes on when they first acquired them? Because that's basically what we're doing on the personal property that they're using for businesses.
While you're paying sales tax.
Yeah.
This is a different tax.
Right, that's what I'm at, but that's what I'm being asked is, you know, I paid taxes when I acquired it, why am I paying taxes for owning it? So, I just need you to answer that.
It's the same answer you
Yeah.
asked when you paid
For
for
real
your
estate,
house.
yeah.
To
And you-
build these things.
You pay for
When you
your-
bought it,
yeah.
you paid for it, now you're still paying property taxes.
Right.
It's a personal property tax
Right.
versus a real property tax.
But on at least on the real property tax, you know, I know that money's going towards schools and roads and things that are servicing my real property. You're not touching my personal property, you're just picking my pocket, is what I'm hearing.
No, but that money for
Yeah.
personal property
Yeah.
is wrapped up in
This is for the business.
that what is being paid for schools and roads and.
I just hear it every year, so I thought that was.
No, large businesses, the majority of their money is tied up in tangible personal property.
Right.
Desks, chairs, computers. That's where the majority of their money is tied up.
Right.
Not the warehouse that it sits in.
Right.
That's a low portion of it. The state law says that we will tax it
Right.
if it's a business. But they've exempted personal property taxes on individuals. Anything that you own personally for taxation
Right.
purposes, they say has no value,
Yeah,
but it
these are-
really does.
Yeah, these are small business owners that are calling
Yeah.
me, so.
Well, we've done something that they'll like. We just started, our online personal property is working like a charm. It saves time, it saves money. They just log into the website, key their account number in, their PIN. If they have under $1,000, they just check small account, hit submit, they can print it off.
Okay.
It goes directly into our system. It's done, nobody else takes a look at it.
Okay.
It's seamless.
So can you do that system if it's above the 1,000 or only if it's below the
No,
1,000?
you check small accounts only if it's below,
Okay.
but you can do it for any size. Large accounts can do it, they can upload their files.
Okay.
It'll attach, it'll load it right in. It's a beautiful system. And it lowers the amount of people that we have to have in our personal property every year to take care of it.
One other point, all these personal property items, they have a life. You put they have an
Right,
appreciable
they do,
life.
you're right.
So if everything had 10 years, at the end of 10 years, it goes down 100%, 90%, 80%.
That's
At
right.
the end of 10 years, you're at zero, so it goes away
I
unless
get
you replace and add new things.
I get you.
All right, we've still got to approve the contract with Pictometry for the aerial photography. And that's more or less like the last one. We've already done the budget amendment, we just need to approve the contract, so.
And to note that this is a 6-year agreement.
Well, let me ask you something. We're gonna have Brian look to see if there's a possibility of him using this same group. Do we need to approve this contract, or can we have the option to change it if,
Once you approve the contract, subject to confirmation that we need to continue to use the other GIS flyover processes.
I'll make that motion then, as long as we're checking on the other, see if we
You
can
got
save
that
that
motion?
money.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Allen.
And also give the appropriate people the authority to sign that contract.
As the,
The real
Legal-
thing is, the thing that's critical about this, they have to fly
This month.
before the leaves come back on, so we need to approve it right now. They need to start flying in February if possible.
is the legal looked at this and the contract and say, okay?
I don't know that legal is written, I haven't given it over to
I
them.
haven't given it to you.
But we can have them review it.
We
It's-
negotiated
it's
a
not
tough
that
contract,
complicated.
yeah.
I didn't think, well, can we add that to the motion?
Please.
Have you looked at this and seen we're on page 5? I mean, it says the total of the contract's 822,000.
Over 6 years.
There's two.
Over 6 years.
Okay.
Yeah, he said it was
So that
135 per year.
Right.
It goes up a little bit as you go out further each year.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is, what, every other year or every third year, at least we're spending.
We're only gonna fly every other year, but we're gonna pay them every year.
I
something
understand
that
we've got it dispersed
So
out.
we smoothed it out.
But I was getting back to what Brian's having to pay, you know, on the
Okay.
cost on that, we're doing it, what, every 2 or 3 years? You know, it's in the excess of
Yeah,
300,000.
it's quite a bit of money. It's-
Now, the Accu Plus, adding that module in, we could add that at any time we do the flights. If they can't do it this year, they could do it on the next flight out. I think it's like $190,000 to add that.
So that might be a viable option for us, but
That over doubles.
No,
Add it
but,
per year?
but if you're
No.
taking away Brian's.
$190,000 over the 6 years?
Yep, it's $190,000 per flight, and the flight is flown every 2 years.
But Brian may not need that information every
Yeah,
3
so
or
it'd be
4
about
weeks, something like that.
$80,000 a year roughly.
Well, Mr. Mayor's going to have Brian will be at the commission
He'll
meeting.
be there.
And he'll be prepared to answer some questions, hopefully. We've got a motion and a second. Let's call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Durden?
Yes. It's been requested we take a quick 5-minute break. We'll continue on. Welcome, Ms. Earl.
Thank you.
Addendum to the government services automation contract.
This is addendum that's been drafted and agreed to by all the parties. It's the government service automation, which is known as GSA, and it's agreed to work with us and the other departments until June 30th of this year. And this is what's reflected in the agreement in front of you.
Is this the same contract you've had with them?
We had a contract for years and years.
Yeah.
This is an addendum to the original contract that will allow her to continue to use this program, this software until June 30th. And if it's used beyond that point, then you'll have to make another addendum to this. But GSA has graciously, I will use that word, and that's correct, allowed her to come back into their use. And through that process, they've identified all the users in her clerk's office, the users, and in the other departments and offices that are using that. So what you have is the master addendum, that's her piece, and then following that, there are several other addendums for the other offices that have their own little piece as far as describing their ability to use that system.
So what is your plan after June 30th?
Well, at this point, we're just, it's under evaluation, and we're gonna see what everything comes out of that, and at that point, if it doesn't work out, then we'll move forward with a different plan. At this time, we'll do something, possibly look at different systems or something. I can't say for sure exactly what we're gonna do just yet, because we don't know what's gonna happen right now.
You need a motion on that, would?
We do.
I make a motion.
Motion to approve. Do we have a second? I know nobody likes spending money on this, but we've got to keep that off.
We don't have a choice. I'm gonna make a second on
Yeah.
this, but I'm extremely unhappy about this.
Didn't we already move some money to this?
Well, the money's already been
Yeah,
appropriated.
the money's there, it's just the
Yes.
contract.
Yeah. Well, the system is not active. I mean, our system, the system that we're on now is active, and we are putting out checks now. The public is getting the money that they
We still
is
need-
rightfully theirs.
Sorry, we still need a second. That motion.
I'll second it.
Oh, did you second?
Commissioner Peak?
No, he said he would second it, but he's too mad to second.
I'll second it.
No, I was gonna make the motion. I'm
Oh, so
sorry.
okay, I thought.
I said I was angry about it, but we got to do it. We had no choice.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I made the motion.
Okay, sorry to interrupt.
That's okay.
There is an amendment coming up after this.
Yeah, this is the money part right here. This is going from unassigned fund balance.
But most of, we've addressed the
Not
money
for her,
for,
not for the clerk's office. The amendment is for,
right,
It's
we'd
for the
already
district attorney
addressed
and
her
juvenile
amendment.
detention.
We're on
We
the
did hers back in.
Yeah, we did it.
This is
Right, this is just 2 other offices that we needed to fix their budgets for their piece of it.
What's the asterisk for? On there it says that where the service agreement was not in effect as of November 30th. So they don't have it now, or what?
Oh, we do have it. We went on, back on agreement with them as of November the 30th.
Yeah, but, well, you don't have the asterisk yet.
Well, it's 2014. I don't know. I didn't
Well, David Lowry isn't anymore either. Does that have to be changed?
It's Tidwell and McFarland. They're commissioner
okay,
and
those,
secretaries.
there were not official agreements with those people.
Oh,
with those asterisks
okay.
out
We've
there.
added, a lot of
Some
them
of
have
them
come
were
on.
using the system, but there were not in place official original contracts, okay? So they've been added.
We got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peace?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Now we'll move to item number 23, which is the budget amendment. I was confused.
And I will do that one.
All right.
It is to put funds in place for, that first one, data processing services, that's for the district attorney. He shows nothing, but typically we did have money in his budget to pay it. We just thought, he thought it would be, covered. So that's $5,050 for his budget, and then the other one, $54,240, is for juvenile detention, and they need 1 month's worth. So it would be a decrease of unassigned fund balance of $5,770 for both of those.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Allen. Entertain a second.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer. No further discussion, call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peace?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Harrell.
Thank you.
Appreciate your patience waiting for us to get around to you.
I just have a quick question, and I don't know if it's appropriate to discuss yet or not, but sure. Is there any kind of an update on where we're at? Like, are we talking to the other software company? Are we doing anything to make that work? I'm just curious.
Our attorney has sent to New Dawn a letter saying that we made a dispute allegation that's required within the contract to start having a discussion. Okay, so that letter's been sent, and they have sent forward about 6 or 7 dates that they suggest that we could have a discussion.
What is your feeling? What is your feeling about the program? I mean, do you think it's something that's workable that we can move forward with? I mean,
Respectfully, we really can't discuss this. We're so near in a litigation process. Our attorneys have asked us not to discuss this publicly. Now, you can have these things, you can ask these questions up in an executive session, another one,
yeah.
but we really can't.
I don't know if I'm the only commissioner that kind of is in this position though, and the questions I'm literally getting from individuals is we are building a $70 million judicial building here. Will we have a new program moving into this new building? So that's the information, the answers, the help that I'm looking for in answering to people to say versus I don't know.
Well, if I have anything to do with it, we will. We have a very modern program as well as a very nice building, so I'm excited about it all. If that's what I should say, I mean.
Moving right along.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. We'll have to work our way through this. Never know the difference 100 years from now. Maybe.
That's true.
Annual report on fixed assets. Ms. Nolan?
I submit this for your review. There's really no action that you really have to take, but we do try to give this to you after our audit is
And this is
released.
on the county website?
It can be.
Or,
It's
I mean,
not.
how can, it's on SharePoint.
Oh, it's on
so-
SharePoint.
It's on SharePoint.
Yeah, it's on
so the-
SharePoint.
So you all can look at it at your leisure instead of us sitting here trying to go through all of it right now.
That's why I agree. And then if
Most
you
of
want to
the
get back
items
with.
just were gone, that were older in the hills.
Well,
Is it, or haven't you looked at it?
on page 9, well, let me see, that's page, it's 9 of 19, gives you the different schools and the county offices that were interviewed during the 13-14 year. And what y'all typically go back to is our missing assets, which is start on page 11, those items that are classified as missing.
French horn. Any of your girls play the French horn this year?
$500.
Yeah, she doesn't have it.
Check Ms. Nolan's trunk. Okay.
But anyway, we submit it for your review, and then we are, Mr. Brown is sending this report to the school board, board members.
We used to get a hard copy of this, so we won't now. Okay.
Unless you want one,
No.
we'll print it out.
That's all right, I mean, I can print it if I need it.
Moving right along, we'll go to health insurance budget amendment.
This amendment, we do at this time every year after employees have made their selections, and we're kind of firming up our budget numbers. And we do pull, we have a pooled amount in the 58,600 function that we set the money there and then pull out until the new commissioners, so that we do have some money already set aside in the budget to firm up these in the various departments. So we need 250 in circuit court judges, 7,100 in general sessions clerk, the general sessions court, 350 for chancery, 2,350 for building codes, local health, 800, stormwater, 940, for a total of 11,790 coming out of the pooled insurance line.
Entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Thank
Some
you,
of this is new
Mr. P.
employees. isn't
Sure.
it?
Second, Commissioner Jernigan, Commissioner Palm. A close second on the second. Any further discussion? Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Finance budget amendment, Ms. Nolan.
Yes, this is a transfer we're requesting to replace our 11-year-old folder sealer.
The one that died at MTSU helped us out.
Yes, and they helped us out with the W-2s and helped us out with our 1099s.
I think keep on doing that.
It's interesting that Tessie Tech had some issues too, and they were sending those things down from Google.
They can't
Did
stand
you help
license plate decals, can they?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaefer.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Fee. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Resolution authorizing the issuance of general obligation refunding bonds. Ms. Nolan.
Yes, we've got we're asking for $34,800,000 to refund the 2000, and there's one issue of 2004, one of 2005, and then the 2007 series, and refund those. Hopefully, when the stars, moon, sun align, and it makes it worth our while and benefit to the county to reduce our debt service.
We've done this several times.
Yes.
You ought to be ready to pull the trigger when
Right.
everything works.
Of course, we have to submit a refunding plan to the state, and I haven't got the approval yet, but that all this has to happen before we could even do it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Baum, second by Mr. Kaplan. Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Baum?
Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yes.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes.
Piece of land again.
Sale of the Jarnett Lane Pump Station property to the city of Murfreesboro. If you flip, there's like 4 pages of this, and the last page is an aerial photo. Mr. Mayor, are you doing this, or?
Yes, sir. This $670 may take longer than $50-something million. All right, you see that little site plan there? That's a little tiny piece of property that the county acquired way back when it acquired the Oakland High School property. And it's on the north side of the Jarnett Lane. That piece of property is, the elevation is probably 15 to 20 feet below that road there. It has no basic fundamental use. I think
Floods,
Mr.
too.
Baum is on the, sir?
That floods there too, doesn't it?
Yes, it's in the creek right there by it. All right, so you see the red piece. The city wants to improve and expand their entrance in there to service that pumping station that's right there in the middle there. Plus, they needed some easement to actually get around and do the construction work they're going to do. So they have a process whereby they value what all this is. So it came up to $670. It's not many dollars, but that's a small little piece of square footage there that they're proposing to use. So this has been before property management twice, and the second time they agreed to recommend that we enter into this agreement with the city of Murfreesboro. In addition to that, they requested that the mayor just go ahead and ask the city of Murfreesboro if they would just take this in its entirety, whatever else is there that we don't have, which is not very much. And they would be willing to take the 670 and let's just be done with this, and we won't have to fool with this anymore, okay? It's nominal value. So I have sent a letter to the city of Murfreesboro, just what I just told you, and they have accepted our offer. They think it makes sense for that to be under one jurisdiction and be done with this, so we don't have to fool with it again. So whatever documentation we may have loaded here was for this description right here. What they want to do is make another description and just actually buy the property, whatever else, what small amount borders this up to Jarnett Lane. So what I want to recommend that you do is that we accept the offer. Now, they say they'll have this deed description for us by the
Next week.
commission meeting. So subject to them preparing the proper deed description to really transfer ownership of all the little property we hold over there to them for $670. That's really what we need to do. So don't just go ahead and execute this one that's in this document, because we're going to replace it if we accept their offer to buy the whole thing. And the whole thing is a few hundred square feet. I mean, it's not acres by any means. And we don't believe there's any useful purpose for us to.
We gotta cut it, don't we? If we have it.
No, you don't want to cut this. It's bushes down there now. I mean, it's 10, 15 to 20 foot tall
I
hedge.
had
You
no
might
idea
say.
the county owned property on the other side. I'm very familiar
I
with the whole
didn't either.
thing, and
I'd
that
like
whole
to never
sliver's
figure
been
out
over there
where
all
it
those
was.
years.
We need pictometry on these. So
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I'm serious. We do need that when we're looking at property here. So we're paying for it. Let's use it.
So if the motion could be simply that we accept the offer of, from the city of Murfreesboro to buy whatever property we have on the north side of the Jarnett Lane for a total price of $670. That's just about really what we're asking to be accomplished.
I'll make a motion that we approve as stated by the mayor.
Motion by Commissioner Allen, do we have a second? Second, Mr. Bond.
And put in there subject to them having the proper description of property and the transfer information available for our next commission meeting. Otherwise, we'll just, if they don't have that, we'll just hold up on action. We'll just delay it and take it off the agenda.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant to say.
That's what I thought I heard her say.
Okay.
Call the roll.
Commissioner Allen?
Aye.
Commissioner Bond?
Yes?
Commissioner Jernigan?
Yeah.
Commissioner Kaplan?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaefer?
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan?
Yes. Other business?
Are we gonna try out our consent agenda next Thursday?
Absolutely. We're gonna wear that consent agenda out. Either that or you're gonna read all the stuff. I may have to leave.
Hey, isn't that what steering does? On part of it, they let the vice chairman read some of it, and then the chairman reads the
We'll
other.
have to tag team it. No, there will be some of this go on to the consent agenda. Some of this is pretty much happening.
I'm going to make my best effort to list the consent agenda items, and you'll have the first opportunity. That'll be the first thing after we get through the resolutions of appreciation, et cetera, for you to move those to the standard committee recording sections if you choose to.
What we thought we would do is offer to you what we think should go.
That would be wise. You offer what you think should go with respect to all these budget things, and
Anything which is
I'll review
contingent
those
upon-
with you.
Anything that we ask for more information on, all that kind of stuff, we need to
We can't
address,
put it
you
in
know.
there.
but
I agree.
Nothing else to come before us. We are adjourned.
Amen.